Right, should we start?
Yeah, for sure.
Let me just, sorry, I'm right clicking instead of left clicking. Okay. Hello and welcome to the MMA Split. I'm Matt.
I'm Josh.
And shortly we are going to be joined by Elliot, who's going to be sort of a infrequent, every now and again appearer on the show, but somebody that is a professional athlete himself at a very high level, has an extensive knowledge in martial arts, and is an avid UFC fan as well, and will be offering his own opinions on the year as a whole for our show today. Obviously, there was no UFC on the weekend, so we're mainly just going to be sort of looking back at what the latest news is, as well as this year as a whole, kind of discussing what 2020 was like in the world of UFC and MMA, our favorite moments, and then handing out a few of our picks for favorite best fighters of the year, knockouts of the year, and all of that nature. Then later in the show, we are going to be going into detail on the history of the time that me and Josh entered. It wasn't really a boxing ring; it was more of a car park, but had our first amateur fight. We're going to be talking about the history of our own experience of boxing, how we ended up fighting each other, and how we will be fighting each other again in a rematch in the not too distant future. So a lot to look forward to. Guests coming fairly shortly. And it's been a hell of a year for MMA and the whole world in general.
Yeah, it's been a very weird year for the whole world, but particularly MMA. Just want to quickly check with Elliot. Is he just going to drop in when he's ready, or have we got him scheduled to come in at a certain time?
As far as I know, he was going to try and make it for 2, but he said he might be running a little late. He was just on his bike. I basically gave him just everything he needs to join the chat, and said, you know, just come in when you're ready, and we'll just sort of fill you in on what we're doing.
Hey, perfect. Well, do you want to start with kind of like the breaking news then?
Yeah, I think the news is a good part to start. And, you know, I mean, if I bring the latest news up, I kind of wanted to start a little bit further back, but we have actually had some fairly breaking news in the last 24 hours or so, which is the highly anticipated main event between Khamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards, scheduled for, was it the 20th of January?
Yeah, it's going to be the first of the three fights in the week. So no, sorry, it was going to be the mid card, the Wednesday card.
It was going to be the
Holloway Gator.
16th.
Then it was going to be Chimaev Edwards, then McGregor Poirier. So it's unconfirmed, but the whispers coming out of Sweden that Chimaev's going to have to pull out of this one. We have no idea what the reason is, but I honestly think that if it's Chimaev pulling out of this one, then this fight is going to get rebooked.
Yeah. Well, it depends what he's pulling out for. I mean, my first instinct was COVID, but you kind of think that if it's COVID, that's the first news that you hear. You don't hear the fights off. You hear he's got COVID and the fights off. So it
and
could
truth be told, 3 weeks out, they wouldn't necessarily scrap that. There's been a few fights they've managed to keep together this year just by by having the positive test far enough out that they could then get a confirmed negative before the fight, and as long as the fighter wasn't compromised too much. I believe Davison Figueiredo did that with the Benavidez rematch.
Yeah,
I might be wrong there.
He'd been testing positive for a few weeks, and I think it was initially that he tested positive far enough away that they weren't too concerned about it. And then he kept testing positive to the point where I believe he ended up getting a false positive within the fight week, or about a week and a half away. And they were so adamant that it must be a false positive on the basis that he tested positive for so long and then had a whole stretch of negative. It was just no way that he could be positive again. And he wasn't, and the fight went ahead.
So
I think injury?
Yeah. I'd already see what else is. You know, we did talk briefly before. It possibly could be like a visa issue or something, but I don't know. Like usually with a visa issue, can't be fixed. You find out, a lot closer to the actual date. 3 weeks out from the fight, I got to believe it's an injury. Let's wait and see. It's unconfirmed at this stage, and there's different levels of unconfirmed. For example, if Dana White is unconfirmed and Dana White says it definitely isn't true, then it's true. This is like the lowest level of kind of unconfirmed I've ever come across. I'm really hoping this is just some Swedish fan MMA site trying to bring in a few extra hits, but we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
it's all about confirmation. You know, there might be an injury, there might have been something that happens. Somebody says, "Oh, that could have been, you know, pull the fight out," and then suddenly you get Chinese whispers, and the narrative changes. But it's only about, we're recording this at 2 o'clock Spanish time. It's pretty early in the morning in Vegas. I think we're going to have to wait a few more hours for anything breaking there. But obviously, if anything happens during the podcast, we'll obviously stay on top of that and inform you guys as we go. So, I mean, I think it'd be a real shame. They're talking about, I think, Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny being the replacing main event. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a really, really good fight. I think it's a good fight for both guys. You know, we know that both guys have the stamina to go for 5 rounds.
Yep.
Who knows? It's if it's a bad injury, let's just say, I think they look to rebook Leon Edwards.
I'd hope so. You know, the guy hasn't fought in like a year and a half now. At the same time, they really wanted him to take that fight. They liked that fight for Chimaev. I feel like the NFL is just going to bench him until they can rebook it. The NFL, the UFC, is going to bench him until they can rebook it.
If it was the NFL, then he'd still be on the pitch. He'd still be playing.
Yeah.
The fight wouldn't be cancelled. But no, well, hopefully it happens. I think the only thing is, let's say he's injured for like the injury sets him out, or if it is an injury, he's out for 3 or 4 months. That's when I think they'd look to rebook it.
Yeah, hopefully. Again, I don't think they will. I think they'd make him wait all the way until the summer if they wanted to push it back. But yeah, we'll see how things shake out for the welterweights.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun year for welterweight.
Definitely a blow, and obviously the first thing that we sort of had COVID effect in 2021. You know, which I think is just a bit of a saying that, you know, showing that we're still going to be in this situation for a while. I don't think it's going to be particularly different, at least for the first few months, with a lot of these cards.
There is one other big change for the Fight Island cards. So apparently Habib has come out and given his blessing for Poirier McGregor 2 to be for the title, which I did call a while back, actually.
This was on my topic of discussion, actually. And I don't know. You've heard the way that both, I don't know if you saw the Dustin Poirier interview where he kind of smirked a little bit and said he's got a feeling it's going to be for the belt. And then Conor McGregor's coach, John Kavanagh, gave an interview where he was sort of saying, you know, it's a little bit surprising that this isn't for the belt. I think everything depends on whether or not Dana White thinks that he's going to get Khabib back for one more. And I think whether or not that 30, if he does get him back, if it's going to be at 155 pounds. And I think that unless the answer is yes to both of those questions, I think it has to be for the belt. And however much I dislike the fact that Conor McGregor can just kind of show up and reinsert himself straight back into these title pictures without earning it. When you look at the picture, and you can't say that he's not going to be at least a strong favorite against Dustin Poirier in that fight. And if he's going in as the favorite against Dustin Poirier, who I think definitely deserves to have the title shot, you can't really argue against it.
I want Poirier to win, but
so badly.
Yeah. And I disagreed with Kavanagh. Came out and said that Poirier's got sort of poor technique with his boxing.
I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree entirely as well. You know, if you look at it as a boxer, yes, it's very sloppy. Kickboxing too, but it's MMA. Head movement is a completely different game in MMA. You can't just expect to rip and weave and never get caught with anything when you've got knees and elbows in the mix, when you've got to watch the level change. Poirier's boxing is as good as I think MMA boxing can really be. It really is fantastic. You know, he's up there with like Nick Diaz. Who else has got fantastic hands? Kelvin Gastelum, Stipe Miocic. You know, these guys can really box in MMA. You know, they'd probably get eaten alive in a boxing ring. I don't even want to talk about McGregor Mayweather, but you know, it's a very different approach, very different style. Poirier is really slick on the feet. You know, he outclassed Holloway. Again, it was Holloway fighting at 55, but really did just, the hands were too crisp and too fast for him. I really, really want to see Poirier smash him. But yeah, I think McGregor's going to come in as a favorite. I think I'm going to end up having McGregor as my pick for the fight. But yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be for the title. What I would say though, Matt, if Khabib comes back just for one fight, all right, what would you rather see? Him rematch one of these guys that he's already beat in, beaten handedly at 55. What about a legacy fight with GSP at 170?
Well, I think, or even at 165, I think that's the fight that you do. And I think that's why you have to make, or you should certainly consider making the Poirier-McGregor fight for the belt. Because if Khabib's coming back at a different weight class, then that has no relevance to the title. And I don't know if I believe we spoke about this 2 weeks ago. I think Khabib has established himself as the pound for pound great and the greatest lightweight that we've ever seen fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
But what he wasn't was a particularly good champion. You're saying he fought on average less than once a year, or just about once a year as champion. And that's not enough. And there was, there's injuries. There was the big fight with Tony that we never got to see through, maybe unfair circumstances. But there was also the suspension.
Yeah, but it was unfair circumstances 5 times. And at least 2 of those were on Khabib.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look, he trains at a camp that's famous for injuries, and his style, his approach, and the way he trains, it's inevitable. But yeah, this guy really would struggle to fight more than once every 18 months across his career.
Don't forget, after his first title defense, he got suspended for 11 months. So this isn't. We haven't been able to see a consistent. Think about it. Since he's been champion, we have had 2 different, in only a space of 2 years, we've had 2 different interim titles and 2 different interim champions, and that's not usually a good sign for a division.
No, but truth be told, the UFC has been very trigger happy with the interim titles. Anything to sell a pay-per-view.
They have, but
they don't get used appropriately.
Maybe so, but I think that in the lightweight division, it's been used correctly. If you think that the belt shouldn't ever go longer than 12 months without being defended, then in Khabib's situation, he's consistently put the UFC in that situation.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And that's not to say that he hasn't been amazing when he performs, but it's a little too few and far between. And when you really think about the guys that have made the lasting impression in the sport, GSP was a consistent title defender, on average twice a year. John Jones in his early run, maybe not so much, but certainly when he was making his name and his legacy, he was a consistent title defender.
Yep.
Same with Anderson Silva. And I think you look at Khabib's record and it's fantastic. You look at his number of title defenses, and I think it matches BJ Penn.
Let's see. First defense, Iaquinta. No, wait. Wins the belt against Iaquinta. I had the interim before, right? So
no, Tony had the interim before.
He became yeah.
So he only has 3 defenses. 3 defenses across 2.5 years.
So and how many? McGregor, Poirier, and Gaethje.
A great 3 defenses.
Oh yeah,
without question.
The other reason that they get away with throwing around so many interim titles at 155 is because you've got so many elite fighters that you need to keep happy. Yeah. If you're not fighting for the belt at 155, you really want to think about who you're fighting, because your next fight after that has to be for the belt, right? So if they can say you've got to fight an absolute murderer like Tony Ferguson or Kevin Lee or Iaquinta, put a belt on the line. It makes it a lot more enticing. Well, actually, Iaquinta only ever fought for the full title, although he wasn't technically
eligible.
However, the UFC had come out and said, like, well, we're not going to want to what like New York NYSAC wants to do here. We're going to give him the belt afterwards for sure. But, it's a very talented division. I would love to have seen him defend it more. And I don't think he's going to come back and fight again. Khabib was chasing his own legacy, his father's legacy. He wasn't really interested in what casual MMA fans wanted, which is fine. Which is part of why he's amazing what he does, is because he's just committed to it in completely the right way.
But there's no doubt that if any of Poirier, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, any of those guys take the belt, that you're going to have a slightly more exciting and slightly more regularly defended title. And that's exciting. And I think the lightweight division is about to explode. And listen, whatever you say about Conor McGregor, great fighter, and nothing would make me happier. I wouldn't be happy if he won the title, but I'd be very happy if he won the title and then defended it 6 months later.
Yeah, well, he's never defended a title ever in any organization.
No.
Just real quick, Matt, actually thinking about it, if we have lost Kimmy Edwards, who I'd like to see slot into the main event though?
Go on.
because currently it's only rumored to be for 3 rounds if it does actually officially happen. Dan Hooker against Michael Chandler.
I've heard that that's targeted for 257.
Yeah, I don't like this as a 3-round fight for Dan. I think this should be a 5-round fight. I think if you want the best Dan Hooker you can get, you put him in for 5 rounds.
Can I make a counter argument? So, in preparation for this podcast, I wanted to make sure that my fight of the year pick was very strong. So, in the last day or so, I have rewatched 6 of what I think are the best fights of the year. And amazingly, 2 of them involved Dan Hooker, because in my list was him versus Paul Felder and Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier. Now, in both of those fights, one of them he won, although I don't personally think that he did win the Paul Felder fight. I thought that he lost.
Close fight, though.
Close fight. And he lost against Dustin Poirier. In both of those fights, after 3 rounds, he was up 2-1. Unequivocally, undeniably. No fan, no judge in the world would deny that. And he hadn't taken too much damage yet. And this is a guy who's had some serious damage in his last 2 fights. And I don't think he's quite there technically yet for what he wants to do. I think he's a little too used to just being longer than everybody. And I think he's taking way too many hits, particularly as he starts to slow down and the movement goes down a little bit. I think a 3-round fight gives him the best opportunity to showcase his skills without having the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, but I know
what you mean, though.
That's 2 fights, though, where Dan's going up against a guy that is tough as nails and will really fight hard to pull back the lost rounds. I'm not saying Michael Chandler isn't tough as nails. Michael Chandler is a very explosive, very well-rounded, but essentially a heavy-handed wrestling kind of fighter who's really going to do his best work in the first 2 rounds. And he's really probably going to try and get Dan Hooker out of there with ground and pound or a submission. And for Dan Hooker, I feel like he's tough enough to survive the first few rounds. And then I feel like it's the last couple of rounds where he can take over, where Michael Chandler inevitably is going to have to slow down, because if you're that athletic, that explosive, aside from Colby Covington and Michael Bisping, everybody slows down. You know, there's just a few freaks out there that never do, but everybody else slows down. And Dan Hooker can win a war of attrition against anybody.
Okay, well, he couldn't win against Dustin Poirier, and he almost, in my opinion, he didn't against Paul Felder. What I think is this: I have questions about how good Michael Chandler is by today's 2020 MMA standards in the lightweight division. I think we know that 5 or 6 years ago, he was right up there with the top. We know that from the people that we've seen him beat in Bellator, who then obviously had runs in the UFC. Yep. I don't know if he's evolved in the same way that the sport has, because I think the guys that he was matching with 6 years ago wouldn't get into the top 5 of the UFC right now. So for me, it's a case where I think if you're Dan Hooker, 3 rounds, if I'm Dan Hooker and I'm in City Kickboxing and I've got Eugene Behrman in my corner helping me prepare, we're training with Israel Adesanya, we're probably approaching this thinking that you're technically better than this guy. There's no reason why in 3 rounds you shouldn't be able to showcase that.
Yeah, I just don't feel like he's going to be able to showcase that off his back. And I feel like that's where the first couple of rounds are going to be.
Let me ask you this. Which fight do you think we'd see a bigger change in how the fight would go from 3 rounds to 5 rounds? Neil Magny versus Chiesa or Chandler versus Hooker? Which fight do you think changes the most from being 5 rounds instead of 3?
I still think Chandler Hooker, but I think that the Magny Chiesa one could be really interesting, because Chiesa, since moving up to 170, seems to have even more energy. Neil Magny, you know, he's a warrior. You know, it's not like every single fight he has is an absolute barn burner, but you know, the guy is very tough. I'll just never forget his fight with Hector Lombard, where, to be honest, if that fight took place today, people would have been complaining there wasn't like there should have been a stoppage when Lombard had Magny hurt. But that one was an absolute slobber knocker, and just a really tough guy, a really, really well-talented guy. I think he's got 17 or 18 wins in the UFC. Not that many losses, to be honest. I think he gets nearly 75% of his fights. I think if you change that into a 5-round fight, it's less close in my mind, and I think Neil Magny's going to take it. But yeah, that would definitely be an interesting change in dynamic. I think you would probably see that in a lot of fights, but with these two in particular, you just see 2 fights, 4 guys that are really kind of tough to put away, to be honest. And maybe with the way their tools are all kind of matched up against each other, I would expect 2 5-round decisions if you made both those main events. What do you reckon?
I don't know. I think the only thing I feel with I know what you're saying with Magny and Chiesa. I think we know more about what Neil Magny can do cardio-wise than we do Michael Chiesa. Not to say that Michael Chiesa has a bad tank, but we just know that Neil Magny is a cardio machine. So I think that the longer the fight goes on for him, it gives him more of an opportunity to, to figure things out and get his rhythm and outlast Chiesa. I just have a feeling with that fight. I don't know. I think Chiesa's on a hot streak. I think he subs. Magny in the first 2 rounds, no matter what.
I would see that as being his best sort of route to victory for sure. If I was going to say Chiesa was going to win, I would say a sub in the first 2 as well. I really don't know. I like both guys a lot, though. I'm really excited for that fight. And Carlos Condit, Matt Brown too. That's another welterweight fight I cannot wait for.
Well, also, these were 2 guys that we were talking about maybe being on the chop list.
Yeah, I guess we're wrong. I'm glad we're wrong.
Well, I think the loser is. I think maybe both of them are, but you called it.
I would see the winner retiring in the cage. I could see the loser retiring later on that evening. It's just a fight that needs to happen. I'm such a huge fan of both guys.
You called that as well. You called that like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
some things are just meant to be.
I'm glad to see that they're not just cutting house on all of the vets. I had a bit of a worry when we were talking about the cuts last week that we were just going to see just every single guy above 35, not in the top 5, just get chopped.
Yeah, is Diego Sanchez out yet?
It hasn't been announced, and funnily enough, this was actually going to be on the talking points.
His OnlyFans.
Yeah, the OnlyFans is on there. I think that's got to be in preparation for him getting cut and looking for other avenues. But listen, we're on December 29th, and we were promised 60 cuts. We haven't had 60 cuts. I think we've maybe had 15.
I haven't really kept too much of an eye on it, to be honest, this week. But yeah, it hasn't been a lot so far.
And not the names that we've thought. Obviously, the big one, Pettis, who I think we all suspected wasn't going to be signing a new UFC contract, has signed with PFL. Excuse me.
Bless you.
And so does Clarissa Shields. So as we were talking, PFL's looking very exciting. And Pettis obviously came out and gave an interview saying that he did not want to be Anderson Silva.
Yeah. That's the right attitude to have. PFL's a great place for him to go as well. 155, they've got Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Who else do they sign this season for 55? It's another former UFC fighter on there, I believe. But they've got some cool ones. They got Fabricio Verdum now at heavyweight. Rory McDonald's raring to go.
Hey, we've got Elliot.
Hello, strangers.
What's up, bud?
Good to see you, man. You're looking well.
Yeah, looking well yourself.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Not too far away.
So let us quickly.
Sorry, I'm just consuming bread, olive oil, and cheese because I came back from a cycle and I'm starving. I got training later. I'm sorry, guys. So I'm going to munch away as we chat away.
To do the introductions, this is Elliot Samuels, a good friend of ours from our times in Barcelona, and a very knowledgeable person in the world of sports in general and UFC in particular. So he's going to be joining us today. And you've come at a good time. We've literally just been talking about some of the news and Anthony Pettis signing with PFL.
Ah, wow. Yeah, I know. It's a big deal.
Yeah. PFL is going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, it will be. Definitely. Other sporting entities in general, outside of the UFC, Bellator, for example. I was looking at Cyborg's fight the other day. Just in general, there's a lot of competition now, especially in North America in general.
Yeah, who's Cyborg booked against now?
I don't know, but I watched very tentative in the first kind of couple of rounds and kind of lost a little bit of confidence. Not the not the absolute tsunami of striking that we're accustomed to seeing after being beaten up by one of the scariest women on the planet, I guess.
Yeah, Nunes does that to people though.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of other kind of fighting. It's a big business now, isn't it? It's really been taken globally and really been run with. So it's quite interesting to see superstars and big draws like Pettis and his family and his brother as well being able to explore kind of a multifaceted industry.
Well, I think we need it because we already know that the UFC will get a little bit arrogant and complacent if they are the monopoly in the industry. You know, funny enough, Clarissa Shields has signed with PFL as well. And when they asked, you got some criticism for it, being like, you know, why are you signing with PFL? You know, where's this Nunes fight going to happen? And she said, listen, the UFC offered me one fight for my MMA debut against the scariest woman to ever do the sport. No, I didn't sign with the UFC. Like, I'm so sorry that, like, I don't want to start against the hardest person to fight and then basically just have my name ruined afterwards. So, you know, and we've got Bellator's now got Rumble Johnson. They've got Yoel Romero. Rumble Johnson preparing for the 205 Grand Prix. So I think we're going to, you know, and even if you look aside from just the names that they've been signing, you know, Bellator have been trying to make a bit more of an effort to bring young guys through. You know, you still got Aaron Pico, who, you know, has got a lot of promise and a big future. So I think there's a lot of hope.
AJ McKee as well. So I don't know if you guys have been watching, but their featherweight Grand Prix finishing up now. So Patricio Freiere's got his semi-final fight. I forget who his opponent is, but if he gets past that, AJ McKee's already made it to the finals, and in style as well. So yeah, that's going to be a really cool one. You know, you get to see the marquee Pitbull brother against really Bellator's kind of biggest star coming up at the moment.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. So there's a lot of exciting things happening there. But moving on in the news, because we've got to talk about this: Dana White versus the media. Did you guys see his little 5 minutes hate piece against all of the media?
I haven't watched it. I've just been reading through a lot of the backlash.
When has the conflict not existed between himself and the media in general?
There's been conflict before, but this is a full-on, like, there's people who give themselves a victory lap. This is a sort of like 1939 German victory parade with all of the propaganda horns blasting. He names every single journalist that he doesn't like by name, quoting all the times that they said the UFC was reckless. And then about 2 minutes in, suddenly cuts to the obligatory slow motion shot of Dana White walking down a hallway. You know, with him going, "They all told me I was crazy, and now look what's happened." And it's like no pictures of
Ariel Helwani's severed head under one arm.
I mean, not to delve into the psyche of Dana White himself, but I think it's something quite personal to him now. I think when you're with a company for that long and you've seen it exchange hands in ownership as well, and you've continued your passion and something that you're so connected to, I imagine you attach yourself to it personally, and it feels like more of a personal attack on yourself as an individual when people attack your business, because you have so much investment into it and so much passion involved into the company itself, that I imagine that you do go home and you do remember names of people that asked provocative questions that caused a pensive state in which you weren't able to address those issues immediately. So I completely get it, but I think it's more of a lash out of, look what I've done, and it's not reciprocated. The respect for the media as a platform for them to push their agenda as a monopoly on the sport hasn't been reciprocated the way that you would want it, I imagine.
I'll say this, like, you can see the only reason he's done this is because he has nailed everything after about April 20th to December 29th. He's nailed it. He's absolutely nailed it. And this is him being able to gloat and talk about not just the fact that he made it happen, but that he galvanized every other sport to restarting. He in many ways gave the blueprint of how you can do it safely. Exactly. And he's going to be proud of this. And I'll say this, I think it's very easy for people to criticize. And when it comes to the UFC's got to the point where it's on ESPN and it's kind of talked about like these other sports, like the NFL, like the NBA, it's kind of chucked into these avenues. And it's a lot easier to cancel these sports because they've been making billions upon billions of dollars for decades. They are well established. You're not going to see the NFL crumble from no fans or no events for 4 months. You're not going to see it happen to the NBA. I think that as soon as the show stopped getting cancelled, if you look at the guarantee they've got with ESPN, the fact that they have to put a certain number of shows on to get the money that they get from there, I think the UFC was close to being absolutely fucked if they didn't pull this out. And I think that's where some of this stress comes from.
I think that's
probably sitting there thinking like, we were this close to it all crumbling, and I kept it together. And then all I get is shit from the people that make their living covering my sport or my company.
You touched on a really good point, like not to digress away from MMA in general, but like these pre-millennial sports that have been thrown in North America at such high respect, such as the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, the NBL as well, like all these pre-millennial sports that are embedded in the culture of American sport in general, really struggled with the pandemic and really struggled to kind of find a comeuppance again. And the NBA is still struggling with exactly what it wants to do. A lot of people are attacking. I'm just speaking in the realms of basketball is something that I know, but a lot of people are attacking the bubble situation and the presence of the significance of the NBA finals that just passed and the playoffs that just happened and how quickly they came back. And there's a lot of critique around that. So I think you touch a really good point there when you say that the UFC formulated a business plan for people to return to sport, and they were the first to do it, and proudly so. And I think that there needs to be a recognition of that, definitely, of how well and how efficiently things were done. I don't know about you, but as a consumer, as a consumer in general, I was super happy to see Fight Island and to see so many fights still going on when there was an absence of me, for the absence of basketball in general, the absence of football, the absence of a lot of other sports that just weren't available.
Yeah, well, they weren't just the first ones to do it, and they weren't just the best ones to do it, but the product wasn't diminished in the same way. Like
they were the loudest to do it.
Yeah, these other sports, they're pumping in the sounds. The only time that didn't annoy me is when the Philadelphia Eagles actually pumped in the sounds of booing when the Eagles were playing badly. It's like such a Philly thing to do. But with MMA, what we've seen is actually it's really interesting to be able to hear everything the fighters are saying, everything the corners are saying, and hearing every shot land. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better than watching it with a live crowd, but it's just been different. It hasn't been worse. All these other sports, essentially what they pushed out is a diminished product, whereas the UFC have had something really cool to kind of like show to people.
One-on-one sports kind of work without a crowd. You know, it's an
intimate interaction, isn't it? It's quite the display. I mean, DC said it best, right? You know, he in the commentator box saying, "God, I'm going to have to shut up here. They can hear me. They're responding to what I'm saying." And I think that's such a.
Did you guys see the Chase Hooper thing?
This is brilliant. So Chase Hooper was the first fight on the 256 card, and he's a 21-year-old kid, really, really good jiu-jitsu, but he looks like my cousin Tom trying to throw a punch. And he kind of has the muscle mass of my cousin Tom. Just
is he really the one that came up in the Contender series?
Yeah. Like you can't.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, Ben Askren's kid.
Yeah, but his no-gi jiu-jitsu is off the charts, man. Someone that's that comfortable on their back is horrifically dangerous. The kind of individual that will flurry you with light punches on the outside and then just pull guard.
Well, he's so good at jiu-jitsu that he's actually able to win a UFC fight, not able to throw a proper punch. But for 2 rounds in his last fight, he was getting beaten up pretty badly until he managed to get a 3rd round submission. And he gave an interview saying that it really sucked that for 2 rounds, all he could hear was Joe Rogan and DC basically saying how shit he was. I've idolized these guys my whole life.
Yeah, during the fight, all he can hear is DC and Rogan shitting on him.
Oh man, that's tough.
While he's getting beaten up.
That's tough.
So yeah, DC self-aware, but like not putting it together yet.
Yeah, that's just what you think, Dave.
Also, I don't know if you guys, the UFC released.
What was the submission? I haven't watched that fight at all. If I'm being completely transparent.
Oh, it's really good.
Heel hook, wasn't it?
He gets an Imanari roll into a heel hook.
Okay, nice.
So it's a real that's the problem. You can see he hasn't got the wrestling. He hasn't got the striking. Once he gets it on the ground, he's super dangerous. But he falls up.
The common trait with a lot of people, their comeuppance in jiu-jitsu is with a gi, right? And until you meet these Greco-Roman wrestlers that change the game of grappling, you're not able to transition the way that you thought you would when you have a gi. There aren't loop chokes to pull on. It really, you don't have the same amount of weapons as you thought you did. And I think the grappling aspect of it, people tend to forget. As a jiu-jitsu fighter, you can be extremely aggressive and dangerous in any position, but it's just there's a lack of aspects to attack, I guess, and the grappling aspect of wrestlers just changes the game. I love to see that matchup. The matchup between a pure jiu-jitsu fighter and a wrestler is the grappling exchanges and the transitions are so cool to watch.
Well, I feel, and you'll be able to offer a bit more on this, Elliot, because obviously you've done, you're a belt holder in jiu-jitsu yourself. But I've always felt, particularly in an MMA setting, you can teach guys how to defend a lot easier than you can teach people how to attack. So you might be up against a black belt who's had 10 years of jiu-jitsu training. But if you've got a guy who's a white belt but has spent 6 months just learning how to nullify positions, there's a level of defense that's not as hard to reach with jiu-jitsu that will nullify a very large level of attack and ability.
I guess, I mean, there's real levels to this, you know, there's real levels to it. That everybody has their forte, as per se. Like you like some people love just being on their back, you know, and just rolling with their back and can just pull triangles out of nowhere because their legs are so long and they've just got the levers for it. Others will love to be in side control just because they've been working the same, I don't know, they've been working the same arm bar the whole time, or whatever it may be. But there's always, you can always be extremely neutral. Yes, you can always find a very defensive and close position where you're not attacking anything, but you just know that you can survive, you know? There's been so many moments for me when I'm rolling with an individual and I get super, I know they're taking it easy on me or whatever it may be, but my objective is not to force a submission, but is to survive for the next 2 minutes and to hear that beep go and just know that, yeah, you know, he didn't sub me, you know, and that's a big deal. That's a real big deal. But is it easier to teach offensive jiu-jitsu than defensive? Well, yeah, I would assume so. Yes, there are real levels to it, and there's a lot of times, especially in a gi, there's a lot of times where you feel like you're safe and you're just not, you know, and you know, before you know it, you're in a pretty constraught position.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of takes us into this year as a whole, really. I mean, obviously,
sorry, just real quick, Chase Hooper, he's training with Ryan Hall now, who is a guy who has seamlessly kind of raised the level of his stand-up game, not only to like match his grappling game and his leg locks, but to completely mask his Imanari rolls. So I don't know if you remember his last couple of fights, Ricardo Lamas, oh no, the Lamas one got cancelled, didn't it? No, the Cub Swanson one got cancelled. Yeah, he did fight Lamas. Just a lot of spinning hook kicks, and then just changing levels and just going for the Imanari rolls and just looking like a constant threat. You can't touch him up because he can attack from range. As soon as you try to close the distance, he changes levels. And if it does go to the ground, you just shit your pants. So, yeah, Chase Hooper started training with Ryan Hall now. So I'm actually really excited to see what Chase Hooper does over the next few years.
I think he's a talented guy. It's just that question of, has he gone into the UFC? Like, how many beatings is he going to take and losses?
Oh, he's 21. He's definitely in there too early. Like,
yeah. But you need, I think it's good. I mean, the general comeuppance of a younger fighter, I think it's important that they get some of these, it sounds silly, but they get some of these losses under their belt early and understand that it is at a high level early. You know, that idea of putting someone in the deep end early means that they become accustomed to some pretty high pressure, intense environments in which they haven't been exposed to before. And babying people through the fight game, something as intense as that, is not always the best. You don't want to learn your lessons at the highest level. You know, we've seen their progression.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance because you've got people like Bisping and Max and now Charles Oliveira who have kind of grown up in the UFC, but they're all a little bit worn as a result.
How defining were those losses for people like Max, for example? I mean, everybody points the finger at McGregor, but Poirier as well for that. Those kind of fights, you know, that submission loss. Those are very indicative of what Max became as a fighter because of those losses, you know, and because he was in there so early and so young. I think that was so important to his career.
Quickly, we were touching on this earlier with the Poirier and McGregor fight. Do you reckon it's going to be for the belt by the time we get to January 23rd?
I hope not. That seems so cheap. And what a way to, what a disrespect to such a volatile division, you know. Like it's that there's so many people in that. Oh God, I don't know. One to, I wouldn't say 1 to 10. That's just cliched. But like maybe 1 to 6 or 1 to 7. You've got a bunch of fighters there that are well within their right to ask for a title fight, and and I don't think McGregor's one of them. But I don't want to sit here and talk about.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I really believe it is going to be full out, as much as I don't want it to be. Yeah. I
feel like Poirier.
I mean, if Poirier wins, and I'm very happy about it. But
I don't know. I don't. Poirier is quite a poised individual, and is a lot more calculated than maybe he always portrays. And he's a very good guy at heart. You know, he's a father first, and he's all for the family. He's very giving to the community, and I have the utmost respect for that. Especially as fighters, there's a stigma behind them, and that kind of role is necessary, I think. But I don't think he will feel like he's won a title. You know, if that's for the title and he's won it, I don't feel like he will truly feel like he's achieved what he set out to achieve. You know, there's always going to be that elephant in the room of Khabib, and anyone who walks away with a title now is not going to feel like it's their division. And
you know what though, the same thing happened. I know that the Hendricks loss to GSP is questionable, and you know, when you had Hendricks versus versus Robbie Lawler the first time, a lot of people felt that it was him defending that belt rather than for the vacant belt. But the GSP still hung over that division. But what turned it around was just a series of great title fights.
To this day, we need to let's not pretend that we're not all sitting here waiting for GSP to make a return and watch Khabib fight GSP or something. Like, let's not. That legacy will always exist. The same way that like John Jones leaving 205 now, that legacy will always maintain its presence there, and there will always be questions thrown about whose division it is, and it will always be Jones's division. And
of course, and I think that's true of Khabib as well. But the great thing about when these kind of dominant champs fall down is you usually get a really exciting period in the division. You get some really close fights. Let's be honest, Robbie Lawler never would have beaten GSP if GSP had stayed the champ. But then we wouldn't have got the great Robbie Lawler McDonald fight, the great Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit fight. Those fights weren't great because we had the best champ. Because if you have the best champ, it's not going to be a close fight. But we got some wars and we got some fun. And then by the time we had a kind of slightly dominant champ sort of emerge, it was Tyron Woodley, and it all got a bit dull again. So even though maybe we wouldn't look at it in the same kind of reverence of dominance, I think, think about the fights that you might get. Who doesn't want to see Poirier versus Justin Gaethje again be for a belt? Who wouldn't like to see Poirier versus Tony, Poirier versus Charles Oliveira, Chandler versus any of these guys? There's more fun matchups to make now that I think Khabib's gone.
Hey, if he does come back and he does fight GSP for the legacy, hey Elliot, what weight class do you want to see that at?
170. Because he walks around heavy, man. Same. He walks around heavy, and I think GSP's gonna have to cut, man. He's gonna have to cut a lot. I don't think GSP can make 170 easily either.
Matt suggested 165, which could be cool.
Weight. Okay. Yeah, I can see it happen. I don't see. I mean, he's not out of shape. I don't know if you've seen him or what he's doing. GSP, he's a martial artist through and through, and he's constantly practicing, I guess, for his own bloody mental health more so than that of a physiological one. But I think he walks around at a significant weight, man, and I think he'd struggle to make 165. I think he'd really struggle with that.
Yeah, the cuts don't get easier.
I mean, say that again. Sorry.
The cuts don't get easier once you hit 40.
I don't know, mate. That's a long way away from me.
Yeah. Well, I'm not speaking from experience myself, but I'm just saying it doesn't. I can't imagine it gets easier.
No, it doesn't.
We're cutting weight right now, Matt. You're not. I'm cutting weight right now.
Man, I'm finally below one. It's taken me so long to get below 190, man. I'm fucking puffed up during the
stay there.
Yeah, what did you guys walk around at in general?
Well, a year ago, I walked around at 170. It's been a rough year.
In kilos, I have no idea.
Oh, kilos. I'd say when I'm in shape, about 85, but right now, just a little under 100. And I was a little over 100.
Yeah.
When I had that lockdown body.
Yeah. Hey, who didn't, man? Who didn't?
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It's coming back.
None of my clothes fit. When we're back to work, just that first day, just that. Fuck, what am I gonna wear? None of this shit fits. Can't button my shirts, my trousers. Look, I'm wearing some skinny fit nonsense.
And so when you're okay, to digress away from whatever we're talking about in regards to MMA, but for those cutting weight or for those that want to lose weight supposedly, what were you directed at or what will you push towards in the aspect of losing body mass in general, whether it be fat, that, or muscle mass?
I haven't gone the whole full sports nutrition route because I've only got to get to like 190, which is like a little over 85 kilos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all I had to do was stop drinking alcohol, which I did a few days ago, start running again.
Yeah.
And just not eat Burger King. You know what I mean? Just exercise a little bit of portion control. I'm quite lucky, like whether it is with my metabolism. If I want to put on muscle, I don't have to put in that much effort as long as I'm dedicated to what I'm doing. If I want to lose weight, I come down to sort of 80 kilos quite quickly, quite easily when I'm running a lot. Lowest I've ever been is like about 75, which is when I was doing marathons. But I gotta be honest, that didn't feel right. That was like every time I was in training, I felt sick.
You're about 180 centimeters, 170.
3, 4,
5'10", 6'1".
You're about 185. You're about 185.
186. Yeah.
We're all about the same height, give or take an inch, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. My basketball license lies like every basketball player.
Yeah.
6'3".
Just wear your Jordans when they do the measurements.
Right. Double layer your socks. Everybody knows. Double layer your socks. Put some heels in. Come measurement day.
How's it going for you guys? Have you been able to play much this year or last year?
Yeah. So I'm playing in Primera Nacional in Murcia, which is a relatively good league. It's like Copa Catalunya in Catalonia when I was playing there. It's a really good league. I'm playing with a good team in Infante. Actually, the game's a live stream now, so in private, I'll send you links if you guys ever want to watch me play.
Oh, sick, definitely.
But it's a good league, but we're bloody playing in masks, man. And I don't know if you've ever tried to exercise. Yeah, so I don't know if you've ever been waterboarded, but you can imagine a surgical mask being dripped in water and then trying to inhale is rather tough.
Oh man, that mask must be grim by the end of the match.
Yeah. So you're on the bench and you're just waterboarding yourself. But it's I mean, in general, it's a really good team. We're training 4 times a week. We're putting in around about no strength and conditioning at the moment, unfortunately. But I'm coaching 3 times a week and training 4 times a week, and it's perfect for me. It's kind of the lifestyle that I wanted, and the team they want to win. You know, our last game was against Molina, and they more or less won the league last year. And this team was formulated on the premise of winning the league and trying to go up and get a bit more money so that we can pay our players and play in EBA next year. So that's the premise, and that's why I'm here and that's what I'm doing. But
nice.
That's the world. That's nothing too interesting.
Can I ask you a quick question, Elliot, related? So I got NBA 2K21 because it was really cheap, and I've got a career mode going. My character's my height, and he's a point guard because it seems to be the only position that.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice. It doesn't. It literally like
people walk around and be like, "Oh, you're 6 foot tall. You're tall." You're like, you have to understand. In my world, I have little man syndrome. You know, I spend my whole life looking up at people. You wonder why I'm so bloody violent and aggressive. I spent the entirety of my childhood around fucking black guys 6'6" and above. I'm the small one here.
Yeah, you're a Floyd Mayweather standing in a world of Anthony Joshua's.
Exactly.
So what am I meant to do as a point guard? Like, what's my role?
Distribute the ball.
To distribute the ball. To coin a very, to quote a very beautiful sentence in that of 2K itself, actually, the game. And I remember talking to my coach when I was in Bristol at the academy in Bristol, and I was like, okay, my job as a point guard, I want to be the catalyst to our offense and defense, and I think that works really well. You're the general. You're the on-floor general. Your job is to distribute the ball, and you can be a pass-first point guard in its origins. You're the person to bring the ball over the halfway line, to call the offense and to call the defense, and to communicate with your team about what exactly you want to partaking in each offense. You know, within each 24 seconds of the ball, and the possession. Clock management is a lot of your responsibility, and matchups in general and reading of the game. It's really important that you have they say high basketball IQ. I would argue that an IQ isn't always the most necessary thing, but a high amount of hours in the game, you know, and that's what I've really learned here in Spain, is that the basketball IQ of players here is unbelievable. Tactically, their tactical awareness is unbelievable, and I'm still learning in a 5th division team here in Spain, you know, when I was in an academy in the 1st division in England. So it's always a humbling experience to play with such tactically aware individuals. Point being, point guard. You're the coach on the court. You're the coach on the court. You're a ball handler. You don't have to be overly athletic, but you have to have the capacity to do everything on the floor. Okay. You have to have the capacity to do everything.
Okay, my guy can't shoot. Shooting's hard. Passing.
That's going to be a problem. As a guard, that's going to be a problem.
Isn't that every player when you start your career mode on 2K? So, like,
it's difficult, but the thing is that I just keep passing the ball and eventually somebody else scores and I get points for it. So I'm getting like 15 assists a game, but I'm getting like 4 points on the board. And it's even started creating like a storyline where this journalist is saying to me, like, you really need to score more. People like scorers. Fuck you. Fuck you. All right, I'm making the team work. We're winning games.
There's something.
Should have made yourself 6'7".
That's what I do in my realistic.
There's a lot of guards in the NBA right now that are pretty overly sized and are pass first point guards. If you look at the Ball brothers, LaMelo Ball that just got drafted, I think is about 6'7", 6'8", wow. And he's a point guard, and his distribution of the ball is incredible. And there's kind of a poetic element to that of a player that can really distribute the ball properly, can read the game really well, and find the players when he needs to. It shows a greater level of basketball intellect, I would argue. But
I heard Jordan got a lot of criticism for that draft pick.
Yeah, it's a marketing choice. I mean, if you're the owner, okay, I'm not to critique Michael Jordan as an owner of a basketball club, but he's shit. I'm not going to delve into an elaborate display of here's my hypothesis and this is why he's awful. But he's done a lot to, I don't know. I think it's a good marketing ploy, and I think he's got a good player behind him. Actually, I have respect for the game of LaMelo Ball, and I think he does a good job playing the game. He struggled in his first couple of games, but in the preseason plays, he's played really well. And for a player of such young, such few years behind his belt, he's had a lot on the court, and he's played professionally in Europe, in Lithuania, and he's played professionally in Australia. And I think that's exposed him to a level of play which is a lot more, that diversifies his ability to play in the NBA. And I think that's very much prevalent in his ability to pass the ball. He shoots the ball very well, unlike his brother. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does. But as an owner of a club, I've drafted someone with millions and millions of followers. I've drafted in a marketing tool in which will bring, jersey sales. I imagine that LaMelo Ball is going to be up there with the top 10.
Okay, I got it.
So he's a good product. He's a good product. If we look at it as not to descend into a Marxist critique of the NBA, but if I'm looking to sell products, he's the best product that you can get.
Fair enough. Makes sense. Since we're off MMA very quickly, I just thought I'd give commiserations to Josh. Eagles put up a great fight. Sorry you guys missed out on the playoffs, man.
I thought it was destined to be. I wanted to be the first 6-win team to win the Super Bowl. But,
can you imagine?
You know what? Being an Eagles game, being an Eagles fan is a very special thing. Not every season is your season, but your team's still better than every other team. So, back to MMA. Back to MMA.
I will keep my mouth shut.
Bournemouth for second in the championship. If you want to talk about that for a little bit, I'll give that a minute.
Say that again.
Bournemouth for second in the championship.
Yeah, no, what happened there?
Yeah. Golanke found his shooting boots. Yeah. I was, we should be a good team in that league. I was worried we might be kind of mid-table. I didn't know how things were going to pan out with Tyndall, but it's just
that area of England right now. Southampton are doing pretty well as well.
Southampton, amazing, ridiculous.
It's scary. I was there. I studied there for a year, and I went to watch them play, and it was dire. It was tragic to go and watch. Strong fan base, though. Strong fan base, I guess.
Yeah, mate. I used to get paid in tickets. I used to film the games for Saints TV with my friends, and I used to get paid in tickets when I wasn't filming. I've seen maybe 50 Southampton games at St Mary's over my 3 years there. Yeah. Back when they had Gareth Bale, so it wasn't all bad, but yeah.
That's cool.
Shit team traditionally. And I Bournemouth.
With a strong tradition of failure, it's nice to see some format of success.
Well, my team Arsenal do not have a strong tradition of failure, so this season has been very difficult to handle. But we managed to get a good win against Chelsea, which is making me feel less worried about Bournemouth replacing Arsenal in the Premier League next season instead of just joining them. So we'll see what happens. But football's been rough this year. I will go back to NFL though, because God damn it, the Dolphins are one game away from the playoffs. I don't know if anybody saw this.
Man, I know, man. I'm excited, and it's been a hell of a season for them. Like, this is long overdue.
Long overdue.
Long overdue. Just I don't care. I don't care if we don't win a game in the playoffs. I do not care.
Just get there.
Just get there, man. That's a big deal. Fuck draft picks. Stop preaching that same bollocks, GM. And let's play in the playoffs.
That's the great thing about the Dolphins, though. We might have been the first team in God knows how many years where we could get into the playoffs, and because of the Texans, still have the number 3 overall draft pick, first and second round. So it's looking good. And Fitzmagic, 19 seconds to go. Dolphins need 3 points. He's on his own 25-yard line. Gets his face mask pulled completely the other way. Still throws the ball 41 yards. Like, maybe it's just meant to be. But let's get back to MMA, because as we were saying, year as a whole, it's been an absolutely brilliant year. I'd say I've broken it down into kind of positives and negatives for the UFC as a whole. You know, COVID successes, Fight Island, record viewers in terms of fight nights and the non-pay-per-view cards. We've seen great fights, new stars.
Biggest positive for the UFC this year has been just being able to prove that the emerging talent coming, they funneled in through the Contender Series. These are legit fighters. Yeah, they have just tapped into the cheapest way to replace their roster. And as much as I hate the way they're treating these fighters that have worked hard to get onto like $60,000, $70,000 contracts and above, they're just going to get heaps on the junk pile. They actually, the quality they've replaced them with, these are great fucking fighters they're bringing in.
Yeah, they are.
That's been a huge positive for the UFC this year.
And for the sport in general, I think it's healthy for the sport. I understand maybe from a financial perspective that it's not the most beneficial on an individual level for these fighters, but whether they stay in the company and stay with the UFC or they move on somewhere else, you know, where talent pools are a little.
Well, I think they have to, because they're not getting paid enough on these.
No, they're not. But it's a really good way it's a good funnel for them and to really test yourself. And I think it's good for the sport in general. I think it's good for the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah. These names will move on to other organizations.
Of the finance of the fighters, because these boys and girls need to be paid.
Yeah. And I think
men and women, boys and girls. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've already had the first Contender Series contract to get a title shot, and I don't know how much Alex Perez got paid for that, but he's only, 4 or 5 fights into his UFC contract. He's still probably on, maybe got a renegotiation, but we're not talking about big money.
He would have got the pay-per-view points. That would have been the big bump for that one.
Yeah.
I don't think you get them if you're a challenger. I think it's something that you only get if you are
that's true.
The defending champion.
I got to believe they would have sweetened the pot a little, because otherwise his take-home salary would have been absolutely miserable for having to go up against a guy like Figgy.
Dana White does make an effort to take care of fighters that deserve it, I think, and it is a subjective part, but you know, seldom do we see a fighter go home and complain about the paycheck when they put in a good performance, you know.
That's very unless they're Mike Perry. But I question his money
management. Poor guy, he's a big draw, and he's a hell of a character, and he does deserve. He just. But you know he's a good fight. You know he's going to turn up and he's going to bang and he's going to throw hands and you're going to see something fun. Every fight that he's had, I've watched. So like I think that says all in itself.
I think he's the only person who's ever won a fight with 0 experienced cornermen in his on his side in a UFC professional fight. I mean, he had his pregnant girlfriend basically just telling him to try and keep his hands up, which, to be fair, is better advice than I thought she was going to pull out. But to be honest, he was one of my negatives for the UFC. I thought, you know, it's been a good year, but we still had negatives. The whole Tachi Palace disaster wasn't particularly good. We've had a lot of really good fights cancelled, not all of whom have been replaced brilliantly. You know,
what's the biggest fight that you wanted to see that didn't happen? And now, after watching Tony's second loss,
I'm still going to say Ferguson.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, man. I don't know.
5 times is a lot. Like,
I feel like we did get the answer though. I'm kind of with Elias.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like we got the answer. I don't think that we would have seen anything different. You know, I don't think we would have been introduced to any. Maybe in the transitions, you know. Like maybe in the kind of transitional exchanges on the ground, we would have been, because that guy's so comfy on his back, man. Like he's
Right.
so on his
How
back.
about this then? How about they don't put Ferguson in against Gaethje? Ferguson actually is forced to rest that knee just for a goddamn month or so.
Yeah.
They rebook it later on down the line, maybe at the end of the year even. And you get two guys fresh, looking to kind of end their career with this big legacy win. For sure, that's the fight that I wanted this year.
Yeah.
I can understand that. To be honest, the fight that I wanted, I actually got, but I don't like how we got it. At the start of the year, I really wanted to see Masvidal versus Usman. And I was so excited when we got the 5.5 days, taking the fight and 22 pounds of weight to cut in between flying 18 hours and all this kind of stuff. And to be honest, all I saw was enough to make me think this could have been a competitive fight if both guys had if both have had real preparation.
I truly believe if they run it back, it will be different.
And I feel that that's...
I may be wrong for saying that. And maybe that's my own optimism in it. But I really think if they run it back, it could be different.
Yeah, no, people can't forget who Masvidal is. They run it back for sure.
Yeah.
Very different fight. With a full training camp? Absolutely.
Full training camp, man. And yeah. And you know what those rematches are always really, really cool to see from a tactical standpoint as well. And the way that they formulate their camp, and it's orientated around not just one goal of winning the fight, but they truly have good analytics of the individual. And for the fighter themselves, they felt the power of this individual's combination finishing with a left hook. They know where it's coming from and they know how it lands, and they feel it. They know that they're little, I don't know, like if I'm in full mount, that they like to hip escape rather than try and flip and change their transitions. They know those little things that they're instinctual. They know about the fighter, and I think that changes it completely. Rematches are so interesting to see because you're countering a counter of a counter. The game is so much more complex now, and
particularly for Masvidal, who's got such a high fight IQ. He's so good at reading the situation and learning and using his experience to figure people out. I mean, very rarely, even in fights that he's lost, they tend to be split decisions, and it tends to be that by the end, he's kind of got a sense of what the guy wants to do.
Yeah, and even guys with great footwork, he finds ways to put them in the wrong position to get their head in the right spot. Just
super elusive with his range control, man. That's what I like about Masvidal. He's super elusive about his range control. You really think you're lunging for your strikes, and he can close the distance really well. He's a good fighter to watch, and he would turn your lights off for fun.
Well, funnily enough, him versus Colby is definitely on my list of favorite fights to look forward to next year. What are your favorite fights for you guys? What fights are you looking forward to most next year that are either already booked or that you want to see booked?
Good question.
Well, Chimaev Edwards, and if we don't get it, or if it does get pushed back and it's not an injury, I would love to see Chimaev fight Holland at 185.
Yeah, I would like that. But I've got to be honest, I think Holland easily beats him.
I hope he does too, but I think this is just the right time. Chimaev, unless he really is like the second coming of GSP, this is the most amount of hype he's really going to get.
Yeah.
If they're going to start throwing him in against legit world-class fighters, if he doesn't get any more kind of tune-up fights or kind of softer fights, this is the most hype he's going to have. It's a shame that they couldn't get this fight in January. Well, it's unconfirmed at this stage. But if that fight is off, it's going to be a real shame because right now, everyone's really excited to see this guy fight again. Fucking feed him to Holland. What a great hype builder for Holland.
Yeah, and Holland make a very good point where he said that Chimaev has not been this amazingly consistent fighting all the time fighter. He's just been marketed that way. Anybody can say, I'll fight again next week when they've already won their first fight without getting punched in the face. You know what I mean? And then he was off for 3 months in between those two fights before he fights Mershot. That's not a particularly long amount of time between fights. And then as soon as he gets the Leon Edwards fights, all of this, I'll fight anybody, I'll fight this guy, I'll fight this guy. Leon Edwards pulled out. There was people that wanted to take that fight. And all of a sudden, Chimaev's camp, no, we've got our big fight now. Why would we've got the number 3 guy. Why would we go down? And it's like, well, guess what? Right now, you've just become like every other fighter. When you're lower down in the rankings, making a name, you'll fight anybody. As soon as you get a little bit on the board, all of a sudden, position, ranking, all this kind of stuff.
It's a hereditary part of a hierarchy, isn't it? But yeah, don't think for a second there wasn't a long list of people lining up that wanted to fight, that would take that fight in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an exciting fight. Fights I'm really looking forward to. Can't wait for Jan versus Sterling. I think bantamweight's a really exciting division at the moment.
My guy. That's my guy.
And
not
this
just because he's Yardi.
Hey,
wow, Jamaica. You see me?
He's the only guy that can still be cool after in a post-fight speech saying that he's going to come on the champion's ass.
He's the funk master. He says what he wants.
Yeah, he does. He's a free spirit in it.
No, he's great. I can't wait for that fight. Holloway defending his belt against Calvin Kattar, first card of the day. I know what you guys are going to say. Holloway is still the champion. There is no way that anyone in that division does not think that Holloway is still the champion. I'm really happy that Ortega and Volkanovski are going to have a #1 contender fight to fight for the right to fight Holloway again. And I'm very happy that Kattar, who's a good fighter, is getting the opportunity at the title. But Max is still the champ. I don't care what anybody says. If he's fighting,
that's a 5-rounder, so it tracks.
Yeah,
it counts.
It is a simulated title fight, isn't it, really? But yeah, I'm telling you, Ortega's someone to look out for this year. I've never seen someone that's so competent in a jiu-jitsu and be such a ferocious striker, man. That he's real. Yeah. He's a tricky puzzle to figure out. I think Max just
he's got a whole nother string to his bow now.
Yeah,
his jab looks so fucking good.
Right. And
I can't see a way that Volkanovski beats Ortega.
No,
there's no range that I think he's going to have an opportunity at.
And the thing is, if it gets sticky for Ortega, he's so happy to just pull guard or be on his back or just to grapple with someone, man. They don't call him T-City for no reason. This guy will triangle you from whether it's inverted or not, whether he's on his back or not, whether he can close it or whatever. It doesn't matter. He will find a way to attack you. And his jiu-jitsu is disgusting, man. It's just
not just that. This is a guy whose stand-up for most of his UFC career consisted of being so fucking tough with such a good chin that he could just hang in there getting the shit kicked out of him until he found a way to make something work. Who has now actually learned how to keep range. But it's not like he's going to be worried if he gets caught a couple of times by Volkanovski. You're not going to have him trouble. And I don't see a way that Volkanovski wins that fight. And I've got a feeling Volkanovski kind of becomes a bit of a Benson Henderson champ. Won the belt, had a defense, but it was a bit of an iffy one. Nobody really looks at it in the same way. And it kind of ends up as a bit of a legacy spoiler.
Yeah. I think
you don't like Benson Henderson. This is like second time all over him. The guy fights with a toothpick in his mouth. He's smooth fucking Benson Henderson. He's a legend.
Against Benson, man. I love Frankie Edgar, and I think he won that second fight. And it's always a bit of a sour note when you know that the guy isn't really the champ, and he gets. I don't know. It just always spoils my opinion of it.
It's true. It's true. It does taint the legacy when a fight goes the distance like that, and the scorecard is brought up, and there's so much controversy around that. It's it's the story of the fighter's champion, who is really the fighter's champion. And you're right in saying so that I think if you ask most of the guys in 145 now, or that above or below, or 135 or 155, they would tell you that Max won that fight. And yeah, I think that's big enough.
But also, it comes down to little things as well. Like if you ask a lot of these guys, would you rather have Volkanovski on your name in the belt, or would you rather get a win over Aldo or Max? It's a name that stands a little bit more. I think anybody can hold the belt. Aldo looked amazing. Oh man, I was so happy to see that.
Vintage Aldo.
It gave me who did he land the hook to the body first when he just found this range of boxing mid-range, just close range hook.
That was the first one, but the kind of iconic one was Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah, I can't remember who he dropped with that, but then suddenly he's found this brand new range of boxing that he loves, just to sit inside this pocket and just rip these body shots, man. And he got a bit happy with it in the fight after that, but he's looking great, man.
Really happy.
Aldo, I'm really happy for him as well. He's still young. He's still young, man.
34.
He's sat on that throne for a long time, and
a year younger than TJ. He's a year older than TJ. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. He's looking good. I'm really like Aldo, and I'm really happy for his legacy. And he is a fighter through and through, and it's he's looking good. It's gonna be interesting to see what 2021 does for him. I think.
Yeah. Do you think it's the TJ fight?
Yeah,
I'd like to see it. It was good to see in his last fight. He was ripping more leg kicks as well. He looked more like he didn't become a hand happy, you know, and wasn't just boxing. He let his Muay Thai go, and that was good to see, because I think that was something that was absent. You know, he dropped one guy with a body shot and suddenly thought he was a boxer, and you know, let's not forget what he's done to, you know, so many people. Faber's legs, you know, 5-6 years ago. Like this guy can kick you to the floor.
No, I think we've got a lot of exciting things down there. And just touching on another one, would you guys rather see Yan fight Glover Teixeira or Izzy next for the 205 belt?
Izzy, yeah, without a doubt, man.
Oh man, no lovers for the old guard.
No. Teixeira should get the next fight after that, but Izzy's a once in a lifetime fighter.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like Reyes beat Jones. Blachowicz beats Reyes, you know, as I see it, you know, he's not just.
I agree with you there. Yeah, that last Jones fight. What's going on with John right now? Does anyone
heavyweight
know?
Allegedly.
Apparently he's going to fight the winner of Stipe Miocic versus Ngannou, which is going to happen around March, April. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's really just hanging on to see Izzy get the 205 belt, because he's going to look at it this way. He can either have a legacy fight fighting Francis Ngannou or Stipe Miocic, which, okay, maybe one of those guys you look at, or both you look at and think there's holes in the game. You're still dealing with the hardest hitters that you've ever dealt with, and a different weight, a different level, things that just aren't going to work out. Izzy's the more technical fight. I think Jones feels it's a better fight for him.
Yeah, I think Stipe beats him. I don't know, 7 times out of 10. You know, I think he actually does.
I hold Stipe in a very high regard. And I also just think this Stipe is so fucking tough. I mean, the only guy who has been able to go in and beat the real Francis Ngannou, because the Derek Lewis shit doesn't count. He was mentally broken. But, I mean...
Yeah, no, he beat him for 2 fights. No, Stipe should get credit for that Derek Lewis win.
Yeah, you should, actually. That's so true.
Well,
I mean... Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, I think, threw his back out just before the fight. You know, he's fighting with a seriously bad back. Still lands a jumping switch kick at one point. You know, a guy that is essentially crippled manages to outstrike him. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, that Francis Ngannou fight. And then Curtis Blades thinks, he's not the same guy anymore. Book that rematch. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Very true. Very true. I'm curious to see how that all plays out. I think if they do Izzy versus Jones for the 205 belt at the end of the year, I think that's the biggest fight that the UFC's ever had. Yeah. If they can market everything correctly. Because Izzy's, I don't know. You look at the pay-per-view figures and okay, maybe Izzy's not quite at the same level that was sort of McGregor touched.
John as well. He's not a bigger pull as he was the biggest pull when he was like 23, 24. That's when he was making the biggest pay-per-view sales. Like recently, not so much. As his legacy's progressed and he's grown as a dominant fighter in that weight class, he really hasn't been selling the fights that you wanted to. You know,
true.
Nor DC either. You know, even that I thought that rematch was huge, but apparently not. You know, and it doesn't seem to be selling the way that. Or he doesn't seem to sell the way that he should do, in my opinion. But, you know, there's only so many times you can hit people and run away, or, you know.
Well, I think you can be the clean-cut champ or you can be the antisocial Mike Tyson champ. But what people aren't going to like is you trying to pretend to be the clean-cut Christian guy and then finding out that you've just hit a pregnant lady.
That boy's so confused, man. That boy's so confused. Seeing these videos of him out in the street stopping looters, like he's this born-again black conservative. Like, what's going on?
But also, whenever you see that, it's like, isn't it so lucky that your camera guy was able to pull out the perfect shot just before you did that the kids didn't run away and you messed up? You know, it all looks too good. It's like he saved some guy from a heart attack apparently in the park, and you're like, of course they've just managed to get the perfect photo opportunity and all this kind of fucking shit. But we'll see what happens there.
Look, he's Eric Cantona. He's Mario Balotelli. He can only do beautiful things inside the cage because he can't handle the pressure of normal life. You know, he was such a fantastic champ for such a long time because he's just fucking nuts. you know, he gets arrested for drinking tequila and shooting up like streets, just empty roads.
I forgot about that. That was earlier in the year.
Yeah, I know, but he comes from quite a like an overachieving, like middle class black household, which I think is an identity crisis in itself in America, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It must be weird to be the greatest ever light heavyweight champion in the UFC and still
not
be
your parents' favorite, you know.
Yeah, you're fourth down. There's Arthur, there's Chandler, and then there's you.
So yeah, there's definitely that element to him. Yeah, not to overanalyze the psyche of the individual, but yeah, it does seem like there are some underlying issues there. But that's made him fun, right? And that's made him the flamboyant you love to watch. So
true. And he's had some great rivalries, to be fair, and some great fights. I mean, that first Gustafson's fight, and even the Reyes fight, you know, it maybe wasn't the right decision, but it was a great fucking fight.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Fight, and a close fight, but a clear fight for Reyes.
Moving on, because there's one other question I want to ask you guys just in terms of upcoming fights. Would you guys rather see Weili Zhang fight Rose or rematch Joanna next? I know that there's apparently some issues with Rose's contract negotiations for the title fight, but what's your guys' preference?
Namajunas all day.
Yeah. Okay. There's just been thrown so much at Joanna so quickly, and she's constantly been at the top table so long. She needs I don't know, she needs some highlight fights, you know. She needs to find she never lost any, I don't think she ever lost any confidence. I just feel like so much has been thrown at her. She's been fighting the best in the world every fight for so long now that she needs some time to just be dominant again and find a flow. Like she's I don't know, that's just my personal perspective on what I've seen.
She also had like a lot of personal stuff going on, like her manager ripped her off, her fiance was cheating on her, you know,
and stealing money from her.
Yeah, she is mentally resilient, tough as hell, and definitely I would love to see that fight again at some point. But the next one for me has to be Namajunas.
Yeah.
There's a big argument to say that Rose is much better defensively. I don't think Rose gets hit the way that Joanna gets hit in a rematch. I think that's what makes it interesting.
She does get dumped on her head trying to hold a Kimura for too long.
No, but you only do that because you're so fucking good that you're trying to do something that no one else would ever think about. It's like it's being a little bit too clever for your own good.
In that situation either. I don't know. I've never tried to pull Kimura standing up anyway.
No, it's not the first thought that comes to mind. But no, we certainly got some good fights coming up, and some good fights hopefully to see in the future. Just touching on sort of a few of the year awards and all the rest. What was you guys' favorite events of the year, if you could pick one? The ones that I've kind of thought were the most relevant, UFC 256, UFC 249. I thought the Colby versus Woodley fight night card was excellent.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. No,
I was going to say the other one I thought definitely deserved to mention. The main event was a bit one-sided, but UFC 250 had some really great fights, a couple of knockout of the year contenders.
Can you reel off the mains and co-mains on these ones? Because
so
I have not prepared for this at all.
UFC 250, we had Sugar Sean O'Malley having the fight against Eddie Wineland, where he knocked him out and with the walk-off.
Okay.
You had it was
Garbrandt Munoz.
Garbrandt versus Asuncao. With the knockout at as a buzzer. You had Aljamain Sterling's minute-long tap out of Corey Sandhagen in the first round. And then obviously Amanda Nunes put on a dominant display against Felicia Spencer. And there were some other really good fights as well. Let me bring up the whole card now. It's not my favorite, but it was just one when I was going through all of these last night and having a think about them. I just kind of looked across and thought there wasn't really a bad fight on this. Neil Magny beating Rocco Martin. And then even on the prelim, you had Alex Caceres beating Chase Hooper. Ian Heinisch, one punch knocking out Gerald Mershart. Cody Stamen looking excellent against Brian Kelleher. Pitolo knocking out Charles Bird. Alex Perez got the leg kick knockout against Jussier Formiga. And Herbert Burns got the submission against Evan Dunham. So it was just nothing but really good fights, memorable knockouts and finishes. Definitely thought deserved a mention.
Well, hearing all that, it seems silly to present any argument for that not being the best event.
Well, yeah, I feel like there's been better events. I just
yeah, I don't know. I think
kind of last one with like a big crowd in Brazil. Charles Oliveira absolutely murking Kevin Lee. What else was on that card?
That didn't have. I thought about that, but it was the first card without fans.
I was the first empty stadium.
It was a little bit awkward, the whole situation. I mean, he had some good fights. Moicano subbed Hadzovic. Gilbert Burns subbed, knocked out Damian Maia.
Is that when Moicano drops Hadzovic with the jab first?
Yeah.
Then submits it.
Yeah. Francisco Trinaldo got the decision win against John McDessie. It was okay, but it wasn't spectacular, in my opinion. You can look at UFC 249. You had the Ferguson Gaethje card fight. You had Cejudo versus Cruz, Ngannou versus Rosenstruik, Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pick that one. I think.
Yeah,
you're going that one. I'm sticking with UFC 256 as my official pick. Absolutely amazing main fights. Yeah. Charles Oliveira looking amazing against Tony Ferguson. Mackenzie Dern looking fantastic against Jan Didoba. Kevin Holland's insane knockout of Jacare. Cyril Gane knocking out JDS. And then obviously Cub Swanson and the Fiziev fighting on that card as well.
Yeah, man. Hard to argue with,
What's interesting, though, that's the only card that I feel had a really strong card and a Fight of the Year contender as well.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, the big thing for me when you ask this question is, like, which card did I win the most money on? I don't think I made any money betting on MMA. I've just been doing overly ambitious Akis the whole time. That's the reason. But yeah, it's been a brutal year, man.
Okay, so you're going 249. I'm going 256. And Elliot, what's your pick?
I'm with you. I'm with you on 256. So recent as well. That was a hell of a card, man. There's a lot
a bit of a sleeper as well. You think 11 fights were cancelled off that card in total. So the fact that they even managed to put on anything that was half decent, I think, is a real win. And then to have a fight night as good as that, I thought was amazing. So no, that was definitely my pick. Now let me go to our next thing. Who would you say will do Fighter of the Year next? I'm going to do male and female. Mine's pretty easy for Fighter of the Year. I'm saying it's Figueiredo. 4 title fights, 3 wins and a draw, 3 defenses. 3 very impressive finishes, and the fastest turnaround in UFC title fight history.
Yeah, I think in 2020 it's hard to argue anything other, right? I don't know, Josh.
Well, Kevin Holland's up there, but just because of the caliber of fights he's been having, it's hard to say the 5 fights before. You're quite right. Even though he wasn't eligible for one of them, missing weight, 4 title fights, that's fucking unheard of.
Yeah, it is, right?
You could argue as well he's saving the flyweight division. So it's not just that he's been Fighter of the Year, but
no, there's a few guys saving the flyweight division all at the same time. He is the cream of the crop. But goddamn, 125 just got really good really quick.
It just got exciting this year again. And the post DJ era has been really tough for a lot of people, and it seems to be on the comeuppance again. So it's nice. It's nice to see.
Royval, Moreno, Cara France, all of these guys. Pantoja, Askarov, and Tim Elliott's still fun. I don't care what you say. He might not fight for a title, but
look, I like James Krause style fighters. I just don't understand why Tim Elliott has to be the one that breaks the mold in the most frustrating of ways. Like, you've got a stable of hard, good, educated fighters that come in with sensible game plans, and you also have Tim Elliott. Just that just tells you how good a friend James Krause is to him, that he still puts up with that shit. Hey, I don't understand why James Krause can't get him alone.
Every gym needs a wild man.
Yeah, that is true. The guy that will spar you no matter what weight you are. Doesn't care what you're on. I'm down. What? Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Hello, Francis Ngannou. Yeah, fuck it. I'm down, mate. Full sparring. No head.
Let's roll. Let's roll. It's cool.
You guys ever seen the footage of John Dodson sparring with Andrei Arlovsky?
No, but that sounds hilarious.
I've seen a lot more footage of Andrei Arlovsky just picking him up and swinging him. Like, just grabs him by a hand and an ankle and just swings him around. I've seen him doing that in an airport. Just
poor fella.
That's so funny. But yeah, it's pretty obvious. I've got Kevin Holland as a special mention for Fighter of the Year, but I have actually got him in a different section. So he will be making an appearance. For Female Fighter of the Year, I've got a special mention, Mackenzie Dern. She got 3 wins, 2 finishes, 3 really good fights, but it's got to be Bullet Shevchenko. She's the only champ that defended the belt twice. Looked really impressive both times, and just carries herself as champion brilliantly. I think she's
Yeah, man. And as a human being as well, like what she does off the outside the canvas as well is incredible. I was watching a fight through one of the links that you sent me in Spanish, and I'm going, fuck, man, she's commentating in Spanish, and I was like, how many languages does this fucking woman speak, man? Is this a real life spy going on? Like,
this is apparently she only started shooting in like 2010. And she got really into guns when she moved to Texas. She's an expert in bladed forms of combat as well. And there are Navy SEALs that have seen her shoot and say that they can't believe that, like, it should be physically impossible for anybody to have that kind of grouping and precision without being a fucking full-on government-trained, weapon. So who knows? I mean, she speaks like 8 languages. It's crazy.
Yeah, she should be. She's coming back for the comeuppance of the Soviet Union again. That's what I'm telling you that.
Yeah, she's
a nation that's been invaded by everyone from every angle ever. You know, the last time that you were offensive force was when you were with the Lithuanian Commonwealth. I think it's fair enough to say that you come from a place where it's hereditary to be that much of just a purebred assassin, man.
Yeah, and she's been doing martial arts since she was 5.
Yeah. Not for this year, but lifetime female GOAT. Do you pick Shevchenko over Nunes?
No, Nunes all the way. You can't,
because Nunes not the shot.
But also, Nunes has the most impressive record of anybody. She has beaten every single person that has ever been a champion at any weight class that she's ever competed at in the UFC, and has back-to-back wins over the most dominant champion in the weight class below her. There is no one with that record. She's on the number 4. She's got 11 wins in a row. I mean, and she's got, I think to have Nunes of Shevchenko as your poster girls for female UFC, I think is amazing for the sport. Amazing for the sport. And I really want to see the Andrade fight. I'd love to see Shevchenko Andrade. I think that's the next fight you make.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you give Andrade a chance? Do you give her that puncher's chance?
You give anybody a puncher's chance, man. And the thing about Andrade is she walks forward and she doesn't stop going forward until the fight's over or she's knocked out.
This is true. But her face is going to be a bloody mess by the end of it.
And she doesn't care. He does not care.
And Shevchenko can take you down. She's only really good when she's on top, but she will change levels on you.
Yeah. I'd say this as well. It's the perfect fight for Shevchenko. She's becoming the dominant champ. She needs something that's going to get some fans and that's going to create some buzz. And to have a former champ in a different weight class, somebody with the record and dangerous weapons that Andrade has got, I think it's a really good matchup, and I think it would sell a lot of pay-per-views as well.
Yeah, I imagine we'll be watching. And bring a new angle as well. I think it's a good test for her, a new test.
Yeah, and watch out for women's flyweight, because if you look at the number of girls dropping down from bantamweight, I think that is going to become, that along with strawweight, are going to be the really competitive deep divisions in women's MMA.
Yeah, definitely are right now.
But we will move on to a section where Kevin Holland's definitely going to make an appearance. Breakout Star of the Year. No prizes for getting this one right.
Yeah, right. You said it. I mean, that was a quick one.
5 wins. I've got Khamzat mentioned. I've got Joaquin Buckley mentioned. But at the end of the day, Kevin Holland knocked out Joaquin Buckley. So what can you say?
Yeah, neither of them are beating the kind of guys that Kevin Holland's beaten this year. It's not even really a conversation. That was just a no-brainer.
Yeah, done and dusted. Done and dusted. Knockout of the year. Again, this one's going to be pretty obvious. I think it's going to be pretty obvious, but let's hear your picks. There's only 2 that are worth mentioning.
It's Joaquin Buckley for me.
Joaquin Buckley. Yeah. No love for Kevin Holland's off the back knockout.
It's very cool, but that double tap kick thing he did, that's going to be played on highlight reels forever.
Yeah, there's going to be a Mortal Kombat move, and it's going to be named after him.
Yeah.
Good point. So we'll get to submission of the year, and I think this one is going to be a little bit more competitive. I'll go ahead with my pick. I factored in competition and who you did it to, and my pick is Khabib's triangle against Justin Gaethje.
Okay.
Less than 15 seconds from takedown to completing the submission.
Right. That's a really good observation. And I think that's a really important observation, is the fact that he took him down, he got on top, controlled him perfectly. Wrist control was extremely quick, and he drove his knee over his shoulder straight away. Like you could see in his mind that he went, okay, this is what I'm doing while I'm taking him down. You could see that the decision wasn't made after he got in the position, and the decision was attack in every situation where I'm in a dominant position. And it was to attack for a submission and not to ground and pound. There was something that told him that I need to be super aggressive immediately. And how quickly he transitioned into an inverted triangle like that. No, like from full mount even. So like that was incredible.
Not the flashiest, not the rarest, but perfectly executed technique every single step of the way against the toughest opposition.
As a submission, I think it was the biggest statement. Was it the prettiest or the most flamboyant submission that we've seen this year? Maybe not, but I would, I'm with you on that. That just as a statement, as a standalone submission, I think it made a really good point, and it's a good way to close a hopefully not close a career, but maybe to sit on retirement on, I guess.
Yeah,
it was.
And there were some other great submissions. Jimmy Flick's flying triangle was great. Mackenzie Dern had a great leg lock submission. What's her name? The Queen of Violence, Ariane Lipsky, had a great knee bar. But I'm a big believer that if you're in the UFC and you get caught with a knee bar, that says more about your opposition than it does about your submission skills.
Okay.
Bit harsh.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What else we got on the list? I can't really think what the submissions we've had this year.
No, I haven't. No submissions have really stood out to me this year. Like I haven't seen anything, but that's really interesting. That's really what an odd transition, or what a way to attack from that position. Nothing's really. I haven't looked at anything, and it hasn't been orthodox in that sense.
We haven't had a twister from
Bryce Mitchell.
Unfortunately so I'm going Khabib. You go other ones you could have Ariane Lipsky, you could have Mackenzie Dern, you could have Jimmy Flick.
I'm hard to argue right now, man, because it's just, it was just great to see. I think it was a big transition for Khabib to say, I'm not only going to take you down and you can't stop me from taking you down, I'm not only going to beat the shit out of you, is that if I really want to, I can just switch your lights off, and I'll do that. And I think that said everything that it needed to say.
Yeah, it was clean.
For people that said he couldn't finish a fight on the ground, well then, I think that really motivated him to do so. And it was the conscious decision while he shot the single leg to go and turn the corner and took him down and went, I'm getting into a dominant position here and I'm attacking for a submission. And that's something that normally you land your double leg or your single leg, and then you're making these decisions as you see what's presented to you. Well, it wasn't. It was wrist control straight away. It was the knee was driven straight over, and that was always going to happen.
No, it was fantastic. And as we say, you look at Khabib, always criticized for not finishing fights, and he's got 2 submission wins in his last 2 title defenses. So he really put a statement on that one. Next one we're going to do, I'm going to save the fight of the year for the last one, because it'd be nice just to have a bit of discussion about this. Upset of the year. Now, this might be a hard one for you guys to recall, but my pick, I think, is pretty strong on this one. I think you go back to earlier in the year, everyone was talking about Macy Barber being the youngest ever UFC champion, and she was going to run through Roxanne Manaferi. And Roxanne produced one of the performances of her career as a massive underdog.
I don't know.
Criminally underrated, Roxy.
Speak on it. I watched that fight through a very kind of hazed glass, not to pun anywhere, but kind of hazed one instead. So I don't know. I can't offer too much of a perspective in that fight particularly, and I won't pretend to, because I don't know.
I'm a big Modafferi fan. I'll back you on that one. Like, I can't really think of whether else that's won this year. I guess Ferguson losing.
Yeah,
Ferguson, but he wasn't.
Didn't matter who he lost to, just that he finally lost.
Favorite.
Doesn't matter. Out the last, I was going to say that his last fight was particularly okay. I don't know. We have to define upset, right? But it certainly upset me to see that performance in the last fight. And it's not like he performed badly, and it's not like we didn't see flashes of what Tony was even against Justin. That uppercut that he landed was disgusting, and it came from the right place, and that came from what embodies Tony's offensive game striking, right? Just unorthodox shot to throw. But I don't know. Those were upsets to see Tony go away.
Well, I'll chuck a few ones out there. So from an odds perspective, the biggest upset win was Shana Dobson beating Maria Agapova. That was the biggest official betting line underdog win. I think you can definitely chuck some special mentions out for Jan against Reyes. I mean, I backed Jan to win that fight, but I remember at the time, it was a lot of people were kind of looking at it as a foregone conclusion that Reyes was going to come in and take the belt that he didn't get a chance to take from Jones.
Well, 2020 has proven many times over there's a lot of stupid people in the world. Fuck anyone that was counting Jan out like that, you know. Just a big Polish motherfucker. You know, even Gustafsson wanted no part of fighting Jan on the feet when he fought him back in the day. Just took him down for 3 rounds. That was it. Just lay and pray, because you have to. That's the smartest way to beat him.
There still was an underdog win. Another one, I'd say, it might not have been for a win, but I think most people thought Brandon Moreno was going to get knocked out in 2 rounds against Figueiredo. Maybe a draw, but that was huge upset for a lot of people in their opinion.
Yeah. I think that pays respect to more the level of the class of fighters throughout the division, right? Rather than that. I mean, respect to the individuals, right? But we often think of things as walkovers, and they're simply not, you know.
I'm not a believer there's a lot of walkovers in the UFC. I think sometimes you just get guys that match up well, but once you get to a top level.
Yeah, but they're walkovers of the severity of which the skills collide, right? You know, if you have a top level grappler against a striker that just doesn't have any grappling skills, well, then it becomes a walkover. But the next fight is a completely different game. You know, time and time again, we hear this, it's a game of matchups kind of thing, and stylistically how things kind of collaborate with each other to present the spectacle of the sport, and the level of which the skills are displayed do impact the fight itself. And it was nice to see that, you know, when things come together properly, that you can get these big upsets, and that's where they come from, right? The idea that these styles shouldn't match, but they do, and there is a contention between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Weirdly, there's been a lot of upset, or a couple of big upsets this year in boxing, but I think boxing as a sport kind of lends itself a bit more towards that.
Yeah, the Teofimo Lopez against
Lomachenko. Yeah, that's one.
Povetkin knocking out Dylan White. Nobody saw that one coming. It's that funny. Povetkin knocked out the English fighter Dylan White after being knocked down about 3 times in the fight himself. And I remember this because I had a mate of mine, Sammy, who's a really big boxing fan, was texting me being like, "You got to get this on. Dylan White's destroying him. Dylan White's destroying him." And by the time I got the link on, it was literally 5 seconds before Dylan White got knocked out. So I'm coming in with this. I'm about to see this guy come in, and it's literally TV goes on. I see Povetkin drop the shoulder, come up with the uppercut, fight over.
No.
Yeah, don't mess with an old Russian. But no, I'm sticking with my pick. I think Roxanne, just in terms of, because I remember what the chat was about Macy Barber at the start of the year. You know, she was going on Era Hawani show and ESPN interviews, and everything was kind of saying that she was sort of like a future champ about to be coronated. A little bit like O'Malley against Chito Vera.
Yeah, there's so much media bias, though, that's really dangerous for fighters and their own level of self-confidence and their own projection of ability. I think it's, media bias does play a big impact on who and what we think is going to win and when.
Dude, before the O'Malley Chito Vera fight, they were doing like a normal ESPN, like with Stephen A. Smith and all those guys. And they were talking about Sean O'Malley. They were saying things like, "Look at the way he steps off here. Now watch how Lamar Jackson steps off. It's the same. Now watch LeBron James when he does this, and see Sean O'Malley. It's the same." And they were making all of these comparisons that you just can't make for a guy who's 10-0 or 11.
I think they're giving a debriefing, and they're giving a memo, and they're giving a script of which that they can kind of expand and play with. But they're and of course some things are organic, but it's an absolute tool. Like, and anything that comes out of the mouth is taken with a pinch of salt with anyone. And American media likes to portray sporting news as entertainment rather than quantifiable facts, you know.
I've learned that very much watching the NFL this year. Although I want to move on because this award, I think, is second last one that we're going to do, and I think this is an interesting one. Not a lot of people talk about performance of the year, not necessarily the best knockout, best submission, anything like that, but which fighter, in your opinion, had the single most impressive overall performance this year? Notes that I'd put out there, I'd say, you know,
the fight in general.
As in a fight, as in a singular fight performance. So it might have been a decision, it might have been anything, but just what was the single most impressive performance that we saw in the octagon this year?
A bit of a wild one. But an old teammate of mine from Bristol Flyers, Christian Duncan's wheel kick in Cage Warriors. I don't know if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, go and watch
remember Christian Duncan. I remember watching videos. You showed me videos.
Go watch it. Oh, he's setting pace in Cage Warriors right now, man, and a big congratulations to him on what he's doing right now. He's been shouted out as like the up and coming fighter of the Cage Warriors right now, and he's been doing big things, and he's training a really good guy in Gloucestershire, and utmost respect to him. He's finished someone with an elbow, just out of the clench, just left the clench and the left elbow that was disgusting, and a spinning heel kick, which is just incredible to see, and it's lovely to see an old teammate of mine do some works in MMA.
Well, that's good to hear. And obviously mention to your friend Christian that if he ever wants an opportunity to get 2 hours of nothing but positive PR and attention, he is more than welcome as a guest on the MMA Split podcast.
Yeah, we average 2 downloads a week. We're flying.
Yeah, and definitely half of them is not me. We're getting there.
Yeah, I don't know who the second one is. I don't listen to him, but
he's out there.
Best performance for me, Justin Gaethje against Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong contender. Really, really strong contender. Just outclassed him.
Yeah. And as the rounds progressed, we saw more. We saw more and more of Justin. We saw more and more of him, and that was lovely.
Well, it's Trevor Whitman after the first round. Like, stop trying to take his head off. Just 70% on all your punches now.
Yeah.
Like, and that was it. That was key.
I'm going to chuck a special mention out to Izzy, because he had so much criticism after the Romero fight, and a lot of people thinking that Costa was going to present a real problem, and he completely and utterly dismantled him.
Yeah, just nullified any of that hype.
Start to finish. And it was one of those where, like, I was listening to Teddy Atlas's podcast afterwards, and he was talking about it. And Teddy Atlas he's a boxing guy, but he's really got into the UFC this year, partly because it's been a bad year for boxing. Before this fight, people were asking, "Oh, who do you think is going to win?" He's like, "Izzy is going to destroy him." And he's like, "I don't even know what the argument's about. He is going to dismantle this guy." And then as soon as he said that afterwards, I kind of looked back and I thought, "Oh yeah, like 100 professional kickboxing fights against 13 MMA fights. This, of course, like no wrestling, no jiu-jitsu, none of the other stuff to make him question. Like, of course, it was going to go that way." But he didn't get hit in the face. Who fights 2 rounds in a stand-up fight against a killer like Romero, like Costa, and doesn't get punched in the face?
Yeah, I know, right? That just shows you the pedigree of and the wealth of experience that someone has inside a ring. I don't know, man. I don't think we've ever seen a kickboxer like it. Not at that size, not at 6'4", not that moves like that, man. Not with those limbs, you know.
Although one of the closest we have ever gotten to that, also another mention for best performance, Stephen Thompson against Jeff Neal.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, that's a really good.
That's a
because
really
we both picked Jeff Neal for that one, just on the basis that it's smaller octagon. And then, like, as he's walking out, we've both stayed up for it. I'm texting Matt, like, that was such a stupid, like, rationale. Like, Wonder Boy is a counter striker. This is just going to play into his hands now.
Yeah. I really wish that had been my reason to pick him. I mean, I basically guaranteed we'll never get him on the podcast, because I said that he's old, he doesn't fight enough, he's probably slowing down, he's out to get pieced up by Jeff Neal. And then as the fight's going on, I'm texting Josh, being like, I want him to win. Why did I say these things? What's wrong with me? And I said that I'd seen the week before everyone who was over 35 got knocked out by somebody young, and this was in my mind. But I love Stephen Thompson. He looked really good against Jeff Neal.
He's cool, man. He needs to get off YouTube, but yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, his YouTube channel's a bit weird. It's a little bit weird. Hey, listen, he's having fun. And that takes us to the final one. I think this is probably going to be the easiest one to pick, but fight of the year. To make this easier, I rewatched 6 of the contenders yesterday and this morning. I rewatched Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier, Brandon Moreno versus Figueiredo. What else did I watch? Angela Hill versus Michelle Waterston. I watched Shane Burgos versus Josh Emmett, and I watched Weili Zhang versus Joanna.
Which is the winner?
There is no doubt in my mind it's Weili versus Joanna.
We need to exercise a little bit of time management now, because I've got to shoot off in a little bit. And I'm pretty sure you want to talk to Elliot a little bit about why we're boxing in the first place. Okay,
we can get to that. But can we all agree that Weili Joanna's the fight of the year? Hands
yeah.
No.
Can we just perform in a diplomatic way? Can we just...
Yeah. Give it up to the girls. Best fight of the year from 2 girls in the smallest weight class.
Hey, to touch upon that, I don't think there's a sporting entity in the bloody world right now that does more for female sport than UFC. I'm just going to say that. Like,
I couldn't
there
agree
was
more.
no emphasis on female sports in general, or female, this is our best female athlete, or any of that bollocks. It's just pure, these are the best fighters in the world, and that's how we're going to market them. And I don't think anything in the world, any sporting entity in the world does a better job for female sport, and
they did slip once this year. They had this weird bullshit film thing called Girl Fight.
No, Chick Fight.
And then the first women's fight on the prelims, they just throw up the graphic, Chick Fight. No context. No, this is a film that we're going to be advertising later. Not even this is a film, just Chick Fight. And then the fight. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they fucked up.
yeah, you got to explain that better. And then, like 15 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I can calm down a little bit. This is
a terrible movie. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. This is the only major sporting institution that is a level playing field. There's no kind of gender bias.
Exactly. And it hasn't done it in a way where it's forced inclusivity or done it in any politically motivated field. It's just pure, just pure.
It's the only women's sport that I feel I can watch without noticing a really big decline in the ability. Like, I think the skill in terms of, I know there's physicality differences, but in terms of skill, I think men's and women's MMA is closer than any other men's and women's sport, apart from maybe golf.
Tennis.
No, tennis is shit, man.
Tennis is shit. Doesn't matter. Men's and women's.
Okay, number one, tennis is a great sport.
I don't mean tennis is shit. I mean women's tennis is shit.
I meant tennis is shit. Tennis is shit.
Yeah, Josh, you're in the middle of two different sides of the opinion on this little Zoom trident.
Tennis is a prestigious sport, number one. But yes, the disparity between the genders in sport is represented in a wide, in a broad context. But I think MMA does a good job. I think that is hereditary to the fact that it's such a young sport, and they've been given an even playing field in the sense of its tactical development outside of its physiological development and the differences between the genders are not highlighted as much in MMA because the competency of both is that of two individuals fighting each other. But it's cool to see. I think there's other sports where we can watch where we don't see a big disparity in level between the two. But that's a political discussion for another time, a different podcast.
Different discussion. Very true. Very true. And yeah, listen, it's been a great year for UFC, great year for MMA in general. Obviously, we'll touch on the other ones. Most of the other promotions struggled this year more than the UFC did. Bellator had a rough run before they got some fights to going again. Same with ONE FC, same with PFL. So there hasn't been as much of them to talk about this year. But they're looking poised for next year. And I think 2021, if everybody can just hope that this virus crap is starting to get over the worst and we're starting to start getting vaccines out, that UFC MMA in general just gets bigger and better.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It should do.
And we got a lot to look forward to once January 16th comes around. Well, that's pretty much the end of our coverage of the UFC and the UFC in 2020. I suppose the only thing left to talk about is, me and Josh decided to. How do we want to introduce this, Josh? Do you want to start us off and break in the situation, or do you want me to go ahead?
Well, I think because I was kind of like the last one to come to the party here, so I think you guys should explain the background to it a little bit.
How we introduced this. So me and Josh, basically, the way that we met each other and became friends is through boxing. The reason that happened is that way back in the day, about 2 and a bit years ago now, whilst I was still on crutches from injuring myself in basketball, I went on a drunken night out with my flatmates and Elliot, who was a good friend of ours, and his girlfriend at the time. And really the whole story boils down to me answering one question stupidly and drunkenly, which is I was coming back outside from the bar holding a couple of beers. And my cousin Tom said, "Do you think I could beat Elliot in a fight?" And despite all of my brain going, "That's a stupid question. Of course I can't. I've never fought in my entire life. What are you talking about?" I decided to give this somewhat surprising answer. Of course I can, and I'm willing to fight him anywhere, anytime, any place. When I then woke up the next morning, I decided not to cancel this idea and to give it a go. And Josh was the person that I sought at my work at Travelodge to help me out, being the only human being I knew who'd ever actually been in a fight or boxed before. And me and him started training with each other, being sparring partners, him starting to get me ready, as we sort of got the whole thing across. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that this wasn't exactly a fair situation. You see, at the time, I was working.
Needed. It's very simple. I saw an individual that was training for a fight, and I saw myself not doing anything at all, and then having one opportunity to spar with someone that I shouldn't have sparred with. And it concluded,
point out, the person that you sparred with to decide whether or not you were going to be able to fight me was the same Christian Duncan who just wheel kicked somebody knocked out in Cage Warriors, a professional organization. So
2 years ago, but yeah, no, it was very, very simple of me giving a very heavy scare of what this sport really is in the format of striking, and then realizing that no, I don't want to strike. I don't want to fight someone in front of a crowd full of people. And that was a very quick realization to have.
Also, at the time, you're having to see the team doctor. How often?
Oh, it depends. It depends on what happens. But yeah, a physiotherapist at the time it depends on whatever injury that you have. But anyway.
So you're still playing basketball at the time?
Yeah, I'm in Catalonia at the time, and it's important that I'm fit and healthy. But this is just another excuse amongst many. It was a very principle of the fact that I went, wow, man, it's not fun getting hit in the face by someone that can really hit you. You know, like that's.
It's definitely worth mentioning as well, though, that the difference in situation between Elliot, who might have had his situation with a professional basketball team affected by anything that might have happened as a repercussion, compared to me and Josh, who took advantage of the clear lack of understanding of what the consequences of boxing are from our work, who basically had already agreed to give us about a week and a half off afterwards if we did need to recover. It's a very different situation. But this ended up leading to me.
They offered to give you time off. They never offered to give me time off.
Oh, dude. Like I had I had the operations manager literally joking, being like, oh, well, you know, if you get a little bit beat up, you know, that's bar half for a few weeks. And I was like, you said it, not me. You said it. So it was a very different situation. But in the end, I think you made a very sensible decision, Elliot, to not do anything overly stupid to risk your actual very potentially successful career in basketball. Hey, listen, I'm being, you know, you played pro sports. You're a million miles ahead of any of us, man, and you're going to get all of the credit deserved to do that. But this ended up with me and Josh deciding, well, we've been doing all of this training. You know, we've been sort of getting a sense of what our levels.
I hadn't really been training very hard, let's be honest.
No, not the week beforehand. It'd been a bit of a heavy party one for yourself. But you still stepped in, and we had a fairly embarrassing, me never really still not quite knowing how to throw a punch, and Josh knackered after a minute and a half from his week before, slog out in the middle of the car park, which we have been desperate to try and put right and give a better showing of ourselves, which is what is going to be upcoming in 2021. We currently said the end of January. I'm going to need more time. I don't know about you, Josh.
Yeah, I would take more time for sure.
I'd like more time.
Where are you guys training? Have you guys? Are you really? Have you got a gym? Have you got membership?
Well, my girlfriend's a personal trainer, and she actually hires out a private gym space. So yeah, basically, I kind of have like a gym I can use most of the time. Plus, because we're on partial furlough right now, we only work 1 day a week, which means we take 4 days holiday and we're off for a month. I've booked in my time for January already.
No way.
Yeah, I've already put that. I'll put that in today actually. So
is that just on the basis that England's fucked and we're pretty much guaranteed to be on furlough at least for another month?
I don't want to start ringing places yet. Me and Matt sell to the restaurant industry in the UK, and obviously that's been massively affected by COVID. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping things have eased up once the vaccines have been rolled out. I'm more than happy to come back to work in February. Otherwise, it's just too easy to take 4 days off and, you know, not work for a month.
That's pretty easy. And we've all still got holiday days left over from last year as well. So
yeah, because we couldn't take that much holiday during all the madness. You know, I've got 7.5 days I've carried over.
Same.
So I'm not even really, I'm still not dipping into this year's reserve yet. So, and you get a whole month off. That's pretty, it's pretty lazy. I got to do something. I got to train. Yeah. Me and Matt actually got flu 2 or 3 weeks ago. It wasn't COVID. It was just flu. First time I've ever got flu in my life is the year that no one's getting flu. But yeah, I got hit pretty hard, but we were both decimated. So yeah, the more time you want to put on, the better, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. If we're going to do this, I don't want to look shit again.
That's fair. That's fair.
Get yourselves at a gym, honestly. Like, I think that's the best thing to do. That was the entirety of my anxiety beforehand, was just like, I haven't had any hours in, I haven't had sparring hours, I haven't had any hours, just comfortable in this environment, you know, and getting accustomed to being hit, and not only being able to react responsibly to that, but also being able to thrive in that environment, you know. And that's a difficult thing that comes with time and doesn't happen overnight. And I think that was the source of the entirety of my anxiety, is being in a place where you're comfortable being hit and being able to act the way and act responsibly in that environment. So,
not being thrown off by having gloves up in your face. We're still kind of sparring together. We've got a little crew together with Miguel Ramiro. I assume Jack's going to come back at some point. But
oh, Jack, man, he's just just a walking punching bag, man. He's 5'10". He's got little arms, and we're all like 6 foot plus with like fairly long reaches. It's just not fair.
His knees are short.
But he's got that, like, he's a rugby player and he's in really good physical condition. So I think he just keeps showing up with this like frustration of like,
you remember my last fight?
Yeah,
that Jack.
Okay. Yeah. Good guy, man. It's a good guy.
Really nice guy.
Great guy.
Really
pads.
Come forwards, dips his head on his shoulders.
Oh
man, has trouble with the mouth guard though, Jack. That's his big issue.
You lot are mean, bro.
I didn't say shit. No, fair play. Like, I was supposed to fight someone else. Jack took that fight short notice as well. So,
who's the other fella you're sparring with?
You haven't met the other guys, but and you like Miguel, man.
Miguel's nice. His hairdresser Ramiro boxes with us, and he used to box in the Peruvian police, so he's good. Not very big, and he's got that nervous, like he's really good with his lead hand, and then he just never really sort of commits to the right. And he even said it afterwards. He's just like, I'm always just worried about getting hit when I kind of do it. But he's got the skills. He's got a really good check left. Sorry, he's left. Yeah, he's box right. But it's fun, man. It's fun. I was part of a gym at the start of the year, but then all of a really nice boxing gym with like a ring and loads of boxing bags and speed bags and all that kind of stuff. But they fucked me. I did like 3 months upfront membership, and that was 2 weeks before the lockdown happened. And they never got back to my calls about the rest of the membership. And then said I could carry it over for 2 months, but then shit locked down again. So I've got access. I know what gym I want to go to, but I want to make sure it's consistently open before I start putting money down.
Yeah. Hey, well, any opportunity to be in that environment, right, and start taking classes. How's everyone's Spanish coming along? Or
Josh is getting pretty good, man. Mine's still terrible, but Josh is doing all right.
So the best thing I can say in Spanish is apologize for how bad my Spanish is. So check it out. Pues llevo viviendo aquí hace 2 años, pero trabajo en inglés. Por eso hablo español bastante mal. Puedo comunicar lo que quiero, más o menos. Cuando tengo que escuchar es menos fácil. And they go, no, muy fluido, güey. Muy bien, bastante bien. And I'm like, nah, just that one thing. I can say that. Say that. You say something back to me, you're going to have to do some charades and shit. And I will come at you with a much more cumbersome sentence in the best Spanish that I can do. But yeah, I can understand quite a lot when I'm reading it. It's just being able to hear when people are talking.
I haven't been back in Barcelona or in Catalonia for a long time now. I think it's been almost 2 years, a year and a half. And it'd be interesting to see how much Spanish is actually spoken in the street in comparison to Catalan, you know, because it wasn't something that I particularly picked up on in my years in Barcelona, because I was more orientated around the Catalan language, and also my acquisition of the Spanish language in general was quite restricted to my environment, which was pure basketball vocabulary. So like, it's going to be interesting to return back with I think I consider myself more proficient in the language of Spanish now, obviously more so than that of Catalan. So it'd be interesting to see how much is spoken and a language in general. But point was, if you feel more comfortable and more competent in a language, it's a great opportunity to get into a gym somewhere and take classes, man. I think.
Oh yeah. This so I want to go up to 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. It's up near the Gracie gym up near like
yeah, it's right next, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to do the classes in Spanish there. What my plan is, get back into shape so that I'm not having to struggle through Spanish when I'm actually like heaving my guts up. So just after the fight with Matt, get back in there. The other thing is with the lockdown and everything,
exercises, your adrenaline's going. You don't have that language anxiety that you have, or that social anxiety that you have in another language. So you just spew whatever, any vocabulary that you have. You know, it's like being drunk.
Things become a bit more instinctive. You realize that you're saying the same shit wrong every time. You stop doing that. You start making the corrections. But my Spanish teacher was actually spent most of the lockdown in Thailand with her son, and she's back now. But like, I'm about a month or two away from being able to drop €20 a week on lessons again. So got to pay off the credit card first. Our RTA payments still haven't come through from freaking November. So
they take so long. Our company's doing pretty well though. We're still getting 75% of our bonus while we're at it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you guys are happy with where you're at, and that job's paying full stop, but paying what's needed.
Still in the bits. I mean, until fucking the UK went into another lockdown, the job was pretty was pretty good. And was pretty good.
Yeah. Nah, I've been dodging all that shit, man. I'm happy to be a student again. Not in the real world. It's good.
Man, make the most of it, man, and come out with fucking the world at your oyster with all of the opportunities.
Hey, bro, if I'm getting funding, I'm not going anywhere. I'll do a PhD in something about.
You're gonna be that guy at 35. It's just like, I can find another degree. I haven't specialized in this yet.
Well, shit, just keep coming and doing this with us. You know, I said, 2 downloads a week, bro. We're flying. We'll be making millions soon. I got a missed call yesterday. It's probably Spotify. You know, the deal's waiting.
Hey, we might have a real for actual guest. Josh's girlfriend knows somebody who's the nutritionist for a lot of UFC and Bellator fighters.
Cool. Actually, if you're wondering, it'd be interesting to know if he works with your mate or not, because he works with a lot of the British MMA fighters. But with Mr. Sport, Yanis, I'm blanking on the second name now. That's all right. We'll edit that bit out. He won't watch the old episodes. But yeah, as soon as we kind of Tom pulls his finger out and we get a bit of production on this, to tidy it up a little bit, yeah, we're actually gonna start bringing in some relevant guests, other relevant guests.
Well, the thing is, I feel like he's not so much a guest. He's going to be just sort of like somebody. He's like our D'Artagnan. You know,
All right, thank you.
The one that everyone fucking remembers. The one that everyone cared about.
Well, the one that
I'm D'Artagnan, bro.
You're at the beginning. You can't be at the beginning and be D'Artagnan. He joins the Musketeers. He's the final piece of the story. He comes in later, then he goes away a little bit and does his own thing.
Just apologize for saying D'Artagnan. All right, you're our Ray Longo.
It's one of my favorite names to say. I will not apologize for saying D'Artagnan. I just regret that there aren't enough people called D'Artagnan that I can say it more often.
Do you remember the cartoon Dogtagnan?
I don't remember the cartoon Dogtagnan. But that's now going to be the name of the episode.
That sounds like an interesting childhood right there, Joe.
Oh, mate, no, after this, go YouTube the opening theme tune to Dogtagnan. It's like really painful to watch, but almost like in this cursed brilliance. It's like the David
story
Lynch
of D'Artagnan, but as a dog.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Actually, I'm pretty sure they're very liberal with the source material. It was a children's cartoon. Okay. I think it was like Canadian.
Dogtagnan. Okay, that's now the name of this week's episode.
And safe.
Guys, at that, I think that's pretty much all of the major things to talk about. Josh, I don't know if you want to do just like one, I don't know, like just a joke one podcast next week. There's not much to talk about UFC wise, but
yeah,
back in Barcelona with nothing else to do. We could do like maybe best walkouts or shit like that.
It would be a good way to start easing Tom in.
Yeah, he does eventually need to actually stop saying I'm going to do it and then cancelling on the day.
Well, let's do it around yours next week, and then we just won't tell him what time, but make sure he's home, and then we'll just bring him in.
Sounds good. And Elliot, man, you're welcome as much or as little as you want on these, man. I know you're a busy guy. It's not always easy to put a couple of hours of time towards this, but yeah, I'll keep you.
You've got a set schedule. Are you here every?
I think we're trying to do Tuesdays because it gives me a bit of a day to kind of edit everything and still get it out without it being too late in the week.
Tuesdays and training evenings and coaching from 5. but and I'm in lectures all day, more or less. My schedule is pretty committed. But that being said, if there's a will, there's a way, always.
Well, listen, man, I'll create a little WhatsApp group anyway. Keep in touch.
Yeah.
And if you can't, no worries. Any ones that you want to pop in for, even if we have to move when we film it or anything like that, that's
not the end of the world. Yeah.
You're a tangible Elliot.
We don't really work at the moment. You know.
Yeah. Life isn't overly hard.
I don't often. I've really lost track of days of the week since.
I've struggled. But this period between Christmas and New Year's inherently time doesn't exist, does it? No one really knows what day it is, what time it is, when's the last time you ate, when you should eat, when you should sleep.
The moment you start having sport on every day of the week as well, it gets even more confusing. It's like I can basically depend on that kind of information, you know?
Oh, yeah, but you remember the start of the year when we had almost no sport? Killed me.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Bad.
I don't need to know what day of the week is. Just keep feeding me the sport. I'll keep chewing up with marbles.
What are you guys watching this weekend? What's going on this weekend? There's nothing, right? F1? Is that F1 this weekend?
Bournemouth are playing tomorrow against Brentford. And then there's like NBA games like on like every now and again.
Yeah, I'm watching that stuff, but you guys aren't big on the NBA.
Well, no, but since me and Kay watched Save the Last Dance, we thought it'd be cool to like check out some games kind of this month or this week and next month.
Do you know what? I think Michael Jordan's done everyone in the basketball community a good service with releasing that on Netflix. Do you know what? Like, I didn't think it would be that impact so many people. Like, and so people that you never would have thought, you know, like middle-aged, middle-class white mums that are in yoga have told me, "Oh, I watched The Last Dance." You know, like basketball's a cool sport. Cool.
Yeah, it really turned my opinion around.
No, man. Okay. Right.
Well, I've always been a big fan of basketball films, but ESPN films, especially 30 for 30, those 30
for 30 is brilliant. 30 for 30 is
good.
We watched the Lakers versus Celtics rivalry one.
The best of enemies.
Yeah,
that's cool
Magic versus Larry.
That's true. Origin.
My favorite one's still the Bad Boys about the 90s Pistons.
Yeah. Detroit was a team, man. Isaiah Thomas is my guy. Isaiah Thomas. You want a point guard? You want a good point guard? Isaiah Thomas. One to watch.
He gets no love these days, does he?
No, not really. No, he's too busy. Well, not doing anything actually. I think he just commentates now. He's a good guy though. Quite articulate and quite an intelligent individual as well. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Not that an NBA player inherently makes you unarticulate or intelligent, but yeah, he's a good player. I don't know.
Who's your pick for the?
I gotta start getting food ready. I've got Miguel and Regine coming over, so I'm gonna dip out. But Elliot, really cool seeing you again, man.
Hey, nice to see you, man. Take care.
And Matt, I'll catch up with you when you get back in town. All right, later, guys.
Back on Saturday, mate. Peace out.
Peace.
Elliot, one last thing before you go, man. Who's your pick for the NBA this year? Who do you think's got the best chance of winning it?
Tough, man. Lakers are looking good. I would like to see them defend the title. I would love to see it again. I think they have every opportunity to do so. I like the way Brooklyn's playing at the moment with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I don't know if you're.
I know Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I'm learning. I'm struggling with understanding what everybody's meant to do, but I'm appreciating more and more what they're trying to do.
That's the issue. I think a lot of people approach the game of basketball with the prerequisite ideas that every position has a specific role, which they do, but it's far more fluid than that of other sports. You know, you're going to see a lot more of skills that are shared by multiple positions rather than one position having a specific skill set. You know, that doesn't really happen anymore because there's so few players on the court and the court is so small. It does require you to do everything, really. And the modern game really is. There really is minute differences between the positions now.
Okay. Is there a team you support, or do you just watch the NBA?
I don't know, man. Like I've been a New York Knicks fan for forever, but like it's an impossible practice because they're never in the postseason, they're never in the playoffs, they're never really in a chance of going to the playoffs. The last time they were, Carmelo Anthony was there, and with Amari Stoudemire and J.R. Smith and that group of guys. Jason Kidd, I think, was still playing. I think he was their point guard at the time and stuff. That was their last big playoff run. And since then, they haven't really been anything. I think that's 2012. You know, I think that's when I graduated from Bristol. High school. Fucking, yeah, it's the year I moved to Bristol. It was in 2012. That was the last time they were relevant.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, well, I need to start getting, I want to get into more basketball, man. It's like anything. It's once I start playing a video game and I get a sense of what the rules are, I can understand it a bit more.
Yeah. 2K does a very bad job of that, though. That's the one thing I dislike about the game itself. I don't think it gives a good introduction to the game of basketball very well. I think that's an issue. I think, like, like, I was the same. I love driving games, and then I really got into F1 because I fell in love with the F1 game. I had a wheel and I was playing it. I was like, that's really cool, and
yeah.
And 2K, I don't know if it's my own prejudice because of my experience within the game, but because obviously I've never sat in a bloody F1 car and driven it.
It so well. That's the thing. All the things that you would do in that situation if you were on the
ball. There's a lot of tactical things. Tactical things that are absent in a game in the NBA game that doesn't do a good job.
Too easy to pass the ball.
A
bit too easy to pass the ball. There's no sense of like, oh, that guy's covered it like this. It's just like, oh, press the button and the ball's gone exactly.
That's a really, really good point. It's far too easy to move the ball round. There's options. As a point guard, I know when I come off a screen what passes are possible and what aren't due to the positioning of the players, whereas it seems quite easy to feed the ball to certain places, or like they're tough, hard passes to make. This will mean nothing to you, but if I'm coming off a drag screen from the free throw line extended from the 45 position, and I come off it and my shooter, let's say, or my 2 or 3 guard is in the corner and he's filling the spot behind me, to throw this hook pass to find him is a tough pass to make, and you have to have really good vision and you have to have really good control of the ball and throw it one-handed. It's a tough pass to make, but in the game it's just something that you can click and press a button and there's no feel for that pass won't reach it if this position, it doesn't matter. It will get there. And I don't know, there's loads of little things. Speed changes, dribbling, the dribbling dynamics is wrong, the defense dynamic is wrong, the physics behind that, so I think it's a little bit wrong. But yeah, that's just my personal critique of the game. For the general understanding of the game of basketball, it's good fun to understand the NBA.
It's a good intro. I just don't know what it really helped me with NFL having one team that I kind of supported, and then I think
NFL doesn't do a bad job, and players say that, like, to understand the tactical elements of the game of football, or American football to us. It doesn't do a bad job of doing that, but I think 2K doesn't do a good job.
What I'm saying is, I think I need to pick a team that I can watch, and then that's the team that I'll watch, and that will give me my sort of route into NBA, rather than just going like, oh, I'll put this random game on or this random game on. Yeah. Maybe just Miami, man. If I'm Dolphins and I follow the Heat as well.
You can do that. You know what? But they're not an exciting team to watch. They're a good team, very, very good team.
Oh, dude, I don't care. I started picking the Miami Dolphins when they were shit, and everyone was like, don't do that. You're not going to have any fun. Look at them now.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Being an Arsenal fan, man, I almost don't want to support the team that's expected to win. It's not always fun supporting a team that comes with expectation. There's something quite nice about like the little plucky underdog that if you do shit, well, that's what was expected, but you might have some miracles.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I would say Brooklyn will be fun to watch this year. They're going to be good fun. The Lakers, the Clippers will be interesting and fun to watch this year. Actually, do you know, it's a lot, man. Do you know, it's hard to make a bad choice, actually, this year. There's a lot of exciting players going on, and the game's becoming more and more dynamic and fluid in its play in the NBA. And the regular season games are for that of entertainment. They're not really for, I don't know, the pinnacle of tactical play of basketball. So you can flick on an NBA game and enjoy watching it for the spectacle that it is. Almost any team.
Fair enough.
In the regular season, 18 games in a season, man. Like, they don't really care. some of the games people are just like, yeah, fuck it, man. Like, you can see them, they switch off in defense, or there's little things where they just don't care because the season's too long, man. It's too,
yeah, we just need to get it together for 20 games at the end and we're going to be fine.
Exactly. We kind of, our team's a little bit better than yours, we should win. Yeah, we do win, blah 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 blah. Last game's towards the season, okay, this is a playoff push. Are we going to make the playoffs or not? Everybody kind of knows where they stand. But then playoff NBA basketball is brilliant to watch. It's brilliant to watch.
I will bear that in mind. And on that note, Elliot, it is 4:20, which means you know exactly what I'm about to do. and I need to first as well. This is really fun, man. I hope you had fun jumping on. And we will definitely have you on in the future, man. Have a good week ahead, and we'll speak soon.
Hey, don't be a stranger. And thank you for having me.
Mate, it's been a pleasure, man. You added a good energy. Take care of yourself. Have a good week. Speak later on.
Take care.
Peace.